Chapter 716, Angel Device Raiment. Zwa was also slightly uncertain. The appraisers were not the only ones puzzled. Zwa was also very puzzled. The formation of this MO raiment had been accidental. At the time, the Black Gold Seal Soldier and the Anti-Dragon Claw had consumed 5 Earth MO weapons which had caused his anger to shoot to his head. He had thrown everything he prepared for those 5 weapons into the last ball. It had wondrously not exploded and formed this strange thing. In reality, the earth, fire, and cold current that this freak rudiment had absorbed surpassed the sum of the other 4 Earth MO weapons. Even if it was strange, it was a powerfully strange one. Zwa tried to manipulate it using normal MO weapon methods, but there was always a feeling of being blocked. This puzzled him. While MO weapons might have slightly different methods of use, they were not different at the core. Mo's strongest power was their physical body. Their body was the source they derived their power from. The MO weapons were formed from this unique trait of the MO. But no matter how Zwa channeled his MO art, while he was able to use it, there was always a feeling of being hampered. Zwa thought of the seal scripts that he had sent out during the forging process. Was it more like a talisman? Zwa tried to use Ling power to activate it. Strangely, it was also able to be used, but there were still places where it was sluggish. It really was strange. Zwa had seen so many talismans and MO weapons, but had never seen such a strange item before. This strange thing was also something that he had forged. Yet while this MO raiment seemed to be a thin layer, it was impervious to damage by water and fire. Even Zwa's sun shin fire didn't affect it at all. This astounded Zwa. He knew the power of the sun shin fire. It was able to melt almost everything. When this MO raiment was put on, it would automatically tighten around the body to become a thin skin. That pair of wings would move according to one's thoughts. They looked soft, but they were difficult to damage with MO weapons. Strangely, when Zwa used the saber of the Iceblood 3-hound seat to chop out a cut after one night, it managed to heal itself and not leave a mark behind. Everyone gaped at this. Zwa could only grimace and spread his hand. I don't know either. The middle-aged Mo's gaze was hot. He couldn't resist saying, Grandmaster, no matter what the price is, please state it, this MO raiment. Zwa waved his hand. There's no need to say more, I want sell this MO raiment. Even if he knew this would be the answer, the middle-aged Mo was still slightly disappointed. He quickly adjusted his mood and said with a smile, Then, Grandmaster, give it a name. The only thing left is that it doesn't have a name. This thing is slightly strange. Zwa thought for a moment before saying, Then it will be the Angel Device Raiment. A good name, the middle-aged Mo praised, but his expression was slightly strange. Zwa glanced at the middle-aged Mo. The other had done everything to help him. While there were other reasons, it was clear the two were in alliance at the moment. He said, Pick one of the 4 Earth MO weapons. The remaining 3 will be traded for the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. The middle-aged was overjoyed and hurriedly said, I want Blue Horsefly. Zwa smiled and said, You have good eyes. Blue Horsefly was the only long-range weapon among all 4 Earth MO weapons. These 4 MO weapons all had a unique characteristic. They all had 2 attributes. This was because they had been forged using earth fire and the cold currents of the underground Nether River. Blue Horsefly was the only single-piece MO weapon of the group. While it was a single item, it had both fire and ice attributes, and was the best among the 4 MO weapons. The middle-aged smiled freely, However, I will not take this from you for free. That batch of materials was valued at just 2 billion mabe. It is far below the worth of this. Since the materials in the dark gold boxes have been delivered, it will be troublesome to return them, so I will gift them all to Grandmaster. If Grandmaster has any new works, please give 1 or 2 to my rare artifacts haul. Zwa changed expression. Every one of the materials in the dark gold boxes were rare, and each was of equivalent value to cities. The other was so generous to give all of them to him. This present was astounding. Zwa thought and then said, if I have new works in the future, you can have the first choice of 2 for free. The middle-aged Mo smiled brightly. Many thanks, Grandmaster, many thanks. The materials had been accumulated by Rare Artifacts Hall over time, and he also felt heartache at giving them out. However, it was still profitable exchange if it cemented their relationship with the strongest MO weapon master. He had not thought that ZWMO would actually give 2 more Earth MO weapons. These 2 Earth MO weapons were more than enough to trade for these materials. ZWMO smiled and said, "If I have a need for the help of your hall, bossy, please take care of me." ZWMO had only learned the middle-aged MO name not long ago. Ian hurriedly said, "Grandmaster is too courteous. Grandmaster's reputation is so great right now that no one would dare to offend you." An's words were pointed. He had seen the attitude of the Tang family to ZWMO. However, with ZWMO's present fame, the Tang family would not dare to treat him like they did before. Even as a marshal, Tang Chen would not dare to commit such a great crime. With ZWMO's present status, even Tang Chen would have to call him Grandmaster if they met. Tang Chen was a marshal, but he was not the strongest marshal, much less ranking in history. Yet the name Xiao Yunhai had reached an unprecedented height that left all others looking up to him. This was ZWMO's present status. ZWMO smiled unconcernedly. He was wary of Tang Chen, but he did not fear the other. In terms of strength, Ji Zheng, who he killed, was even more powerful. Right now, he just didn't want to cause any waves, and everything could wait until he got the reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. "Put everything aside, Boss E. Please spend more effort on the reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass." ZWMO said. Of course. Ian hurriedly said. His face was filled with joy. This time, he had gambled rightly. This MO weapon miracle would leave a great mark on history. And Rare Artifacts Hall that had played such a great role in this event would benefit for many years from this. The 4 Earth MO weapons were placed in Rare Artifacts Hall, and he would be in complete charge of exchanging the Earth MO weapons for Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. Not long in the future, the name of Rare Artifacts Hall would pass into all of the MO territories. Yet ZWMO, who was only focused on obtaining the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass, didn't know what kind of whirlwind he had created. MO Shin Temple. The eyes of the 2 MO gods were locked onto the mirage on the table. It was the angel device raiment. They had gotten the mirage from other avenues, and the fidelity of the image to the event was high. Every single detail was clear. There was also a segment after on ZWMO landing from the sky. Their expressions were filled with surprise. Without blinking, they had stared at the mirage for a whole night. "It is not a Sky Missouri weapon," the rhinoceros MO god rumbled out. There was a rare blush on his calm face, and his excitement could be seen. "It is a Shin device." The eldest MO god's gaze didn't move at all. It was possible to hear a thread of insuppressible excitement from his cold tone. On his thin face, the sickle-shaped mark was completely exposed. "Shin device." The rhinoceros MO stilled. While that angel device raiment was unlike any MO weapon he had seen before, he hadn't thought that it would be a Shin weapon. Old 3 said that the mysterious old man said that Xiao Yunhai might be able to forge Shin devices. "I hadn't thought that he would actually forge something so close to a Shin device," the eldest MO god slowly said. The sickle-red mark on his face moved and appeared unspeakably terrifying. "Close to Shin device, I understand." The rhinoceros MO god's shock lessened slightly and nodded. He could accept this. "It is very close." There was surprise and admiration on the eldest MO god's face. He stood and drawled. "If a Shin device appears, the era of Shin power will come even more quickly." The rhinoceros MO said gravely, "We do not need to change anything." "No." The eldest MO god narrowed his eyes and his tone was sharp. "We need to quickly resolve our fatal weakness, expand even more quickly to get the most advantage before our enemies have grown up. While their relative power has fallen, they have strong foundations, and this means that they will be stronger in the long run." "What should we do?" The rhinoceros MO Gold's expression did not change as he rumbled out a question. "We need the angel device raiment. This is the MO weapon that is closest to a Shin device right now. We need to study this." The eldest MO god narrowed his eyes and said methodically, "Also, if Xiao Yunhai is on our hands, we do not have to worry that Xiao Mo Gu will not come. But this way, wouldn't we make too much of a fuss?" The rhinoceros Mo god looked at the eldest Mo god. His tone was calm. Xiao Yunhai is a star right now, it will be troublesome if we move against him. In the end, we can only have a say in this world based on power, the eldest Mo god said coolly. In front of absolute power, everything else is as fragile as paper. The Tang family will have qualms, but we do not need to worry. The eldest Mo god said proudly. Zuemo did not go out and show off. While he would receive numerous exquisitely crafted invitations every day, he ignored them all. He had gained much this time. Other than his Mo weapons crafting ability, he felt as though his spell level had also skyrocketed. Forging was able to increase control of Ling power, so the Xiuzhe that were skilled in forging would usually have outstanding control of Ling power. This could be seen from how many sects mandated forging as an essential class to take. The control of Ling power had always been Zuemo's shortcoming, but after forging in this time, and with the Gravestone Ode's boost, he had progressed rapidly. Other than the Earth Mo weapon he gave rare artifacts haul. According to the promise he had given before, he would only be able to get 3 reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrasses. He didn't know if 3 reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrasses would be enough, but he decided to use the time to forge some more Earth Mo weapons to change for more reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. Also, he had gained greatly from forging Earth Mo weapons. If he did it again, his Ling power control would go up a level, and his strength would grow stronger. The rare 1,000-year-old collection of rare artifacts haul was on his hand right now. These materials stimulated him, and he kept on having new ideas. The previous forging process had also given him many inspirations, especially that strange angel device raiment. He had a strong impulse to forge new Mo weapons. Chapter 717. The mysterious old man Zuemo was optimistic about forging, but the reality of the situation was not so sunny. The water level of the underground Nether River had been drastically lowered, and for the first time, it was lowered almost to the riverbed. The Heaven Tier Mo weapon pool had completely crystallized and it was unusable for forging Mo weapons. On this matter, the party who lost was the Tang family. Zuemo had almost dried up the entirety of the underground Nether River, and it would be many years for the Mo weapon pools to recover to their previous state. However, there was no way they could ask for reparations from Zuemo. In the eyes of other people, the Tang family had benefited greatly. An endless stream of visitors had caused the underground Nether River to become a tourist spot. It was not so easy for Zuemo to find another high-level Mo weapon pool. Also, before he found a new Mo weapon pool, he needed to deal with another problem. The Angel Device Raiment. There were many people who had used all kinds of methods and connections to inform him that they hoped to see the Angel Device Raiment. Look at the background of these people. The Tang family patriarch Tang Cheng, Gong Zixi, Feng Xnz of the Yao Envoys, Ji Liu, Mo god Yoshia Ku of the Emotion Temple. Any of them were influential on their own, and what was most unexpected to Zuemo was that the Emotion Temple would send in such a request. Zuemo had a deep impression of the great power of the rhinoceros Mo god of the Emotion Temple. At that time, Zuemo finally saw the power of Shen power. Even though he had cultivated Shen power for such a long time, he had never seen such astounding Shen power. It would not be easy for Zuemo to refuse any of the requests. Their demand was not outrageous. They only wanted to see the mysterious Angel Device Raiment. After some thought, Zuemo decided to hold a small public demonstration to show off the Angel Device Raiment. There were many parts to the Angel Device Raiment that Zuemo had a hard time understanding, and he also hoped that these experts would give him some ideas. Numerous invitations were sent out. Yet what followed surprised Zuemo. More requests and inquiries came in. He had to increase the number of invitations. The underground Nether River wasn't the only spot filled with people. All of Buzhou City was filled with people in every corner. It was the first time so many people were visiting Buzhou City since it was built. Unlike the Tang family who was worried about maintaining their control, the other factions were excited. This was such a good opportunity to make money. The busiest and most populous place in Buzhou City was still the Rare Artifacts Hall. If Zuemo came to visit the Rare Artifacts Hall again, his jaw would drop in shock. The outer wall of Rare Artifact Hall had been taken down. Other than the heavy Jinji that were kept, everything else was cleared out, and there were only 4 crystal shelves inside. There was an Earth MO weapon floating inside each crystal case. The 4 newly created Earth MO weapons were like 4 vicious beasts silently hibernating as they showed off their beauty and power. Every MO that came to visit showed intoxication when they saw these 4 top MO weapons. The perfect merging of beauty and power. The MO who revered strength didn't have any immunity towards them. It was the lifelong wish of many people to see the grandeur of the legendary Earth MO weapons at a close distance. If it wasn't for the heavy Jinji on the crystal cases, and the great Jinji that curved to cover the entire place, many people would have instinctively reached out. Inhales, swallows, and gasps of shock rang out. Every shopkeeper of Rare Artifacts Hall straightened their backs, their faces covered in professional smiles. They felt peerlessly proud and excited at the scene in front of them. Chui-en was among the crowd. His gaze was burning and desirous as it fixated on the 4 Earth MO weapons. However, what he felt more of was anxiousness. 1 reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass to trade for an Earth MO weapon, was this true? Gritting his teeth, he walked in front of a shopkeeper. May I ask if it is possible to trade a reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass for an Earth MO weapon now? The shopkeeper, who had a small smile on his face all this time, immediately turned grave. Yes, it can be traded. Sir has a reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass? The words were heaven to Chui-en's ears. He was overjoyed but kept his expression calm. Yes. The shopkeeper did not dare to slight him and hurriedly said, "Please come with me." The shopkeeper quickly guided Chui-en towards a heavily guarded inner room. The shops surrounding Rare Artifacts Hall had been bought, borrowed, or rented at a high price by Rare Artifacts Hall. An experienced appraiser had been waiting in the room. Chui-en took a deep breath and carefully took out the reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. The assessor carefully made his assessment. About 15 minutes later, he wiped the fine sweat off his forehead, nodded, and said, "It is reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. The quality is good, it can be traded." Chui-en's heart uncontrollably jumped, and a feeling of great fortune flooded his body and mind. The shopkeeper was also slightly excited when he heard this, but he kept his composure. He said, "Congratulations, sir. Other than Blue Horsefly, you can choose any of the other 3. It was not a surprise that Blue Horsefly belonged to Rare Artifacts Hall. Blue Horsefly had been the only weapon marked with the insignia of Rare Artifacts Hall among the 4 Earth MO weapons displayed. Chui-en inhaled deeply and calmed his excitement. "I want the Een Clearly Chakrams." When the Een Clearly Chakrams disappeared suddenly from the crystal cases, the people who had been looking at it immediately gasped. Nearby shopkeepers hurriedly explained. The news that someone had used reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass to trade for the Een Clearly Chakrams spread through the entire city. Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass could be traded for Earth MO weapons. This was true. The world immediately went crazy. Zuoremo looked warily at the old man in front of him. Ague stood woodenly by his side. Sung Lianer narrowed her eyes as her long sleeve that touched the floor remained still, as though she was prepared to attack at any moment. Zuoremo was astounded when the old man had materialized like a ghost. The guard outside was tight, yet the old man had managed to make his way in without being detected. Yet what surprised him was that the old man was looking at Ague. His gaze was complex, mixed with pity, tenderness, and guilt. Zuoremo unconsciously shielded Ague and faced the old man guardedly. "She has the undying Shin punishment?" the old man suddenly asked. His eyes were full of a complicated emotion. Zuomo's body suddenly shook and he abruptly raised his head. He asked gravely as his murderousness came out, "Who are you?" The old man ignored Zuomo. His brow creased with slight dissatisfaction. "Haven't you found that her undying Shin power has a problem?" "The undying Shin power has a problem?" Zuomo's expression changed slightly as he rushed to hold Agui's wrist. The purple chain had become even thicker. There seemed to be something that was barely taking form inside Agui's soul. "What is going on?" Zuomo's tone changed. No matter how he tried, he could not see what was being formed inside Agui's soul. He was slightly terrified. He could not do anything to the undying Shin power, and his greatest fear was a problem occurring. And as expected, his greatest fear was occurring. The undying Shin punishment has not changed much, the old man mused to himself. Other than what? Zhuo unconsciously blurted out. Unless she formed the undying Shin seal. The old man suddenly raised his head. Yes, it definitely is the undying Shin seal. Seeing the blankness on Zhuo's face, the old man explained in a cold voice. The undying Shin punishment is the cruelest Shin punishment, but it is not without hope. The only solution in legend is to form the undying Shin seal and search for life in death. I had not thought the legends were true. The undying Shin seal, it definitely is the undying Shin seal. So this means that a Gue can break free of the undying Shin punishment? Zhuo said joyfully. It is not so easy. The old man smiled coldly. He looked at Zhuo, narrowed his eyes that dimmed and brightened. His gaze caused Zhuo's hairs to stand on end. He felt a strong feeling of danger and he was on his guard. Suddenly, the old man's expression returned to normal as though the enmity he had just exuded was an illusion. He said lightly, the undying Shin seal is the 1 in 10,000 chance of life in death. While there is the legend, no one knows how it can formed. It is difficult to say whether she has the undying Shin power or not. Even if she does, the danger she faces far surpasses your imagination. If you have reverse shadow soul silkgrass, you may want to try. The old man looked deeply at Zhuo. You want to know your origins, but it will also help her. Those memories can help her understand her own heart and not get lost in the pain of the undying Shin punishment. Zhuo seemed to understand. He thought of the peaceful Gue within the purple chains and shook his head. A Gue will not lose herself. The old man stilled slightly when he heard this. His expression quickly recovered and he threw a small bag to Zhuo. This is scab fragrance. Feed it to her, it is also of benefit, the old man said coolly. Don't keep your angel device raiment, it will only bring calamity. Zhuo received the little bag but noticed the old man's words. He asked in response, bring calamity? You poked the hornet's nest, the old man said impatiently. Also, no matter what, do not expose your identity as Xiao Emogu. Zhuo's expression changed dramatically. Even Tseng Lianer's expression changed and she almost attacked from the side. The other knew his identity as Xiao Emogu. Zhuo's expression wavered and he was shocked inside. The old man glanced at Tseng Lianer and then he was clearly unfriendly when he looked at Zhuo. So young, but you have many women. Tseng Lianer was like a cat who had its tail that was stepped on. Her narrowed eyes immediately froze over. The old man didn't even look at Zhuo. He said, the Yao are a good partner to trade with, ask for, reincarnation feather, soul execution Yao light, death thought bead. They are all beneficial for her. If it is Tianhuan, trade for the Tianhuan case. If it is Kunlun, trade for the Kunlun sword soul, jade level, and get 3. Shixian's, 5-element soul dan, Xian Kong's, great compassion great sorrow life sutra. The Mo don't have anything good for healing the soul. Zhuo was confused but he had a general grasp. He was even more puzzled and couldn't help but ask, what is the angel device raiment? Shin device. Shin device. Zhuo's eyes widened. Just close to it. The old man added, do your best. Finishing, the old man disappeared right in front of Zhuo's eyes. Zhuo and Tseng Lianer changed expression. Zhuo suddenly thought of a Shin method from the ancient era called the Shin Void Pass. Shin power. The old man cultivated Shin power. Who was he? Chapter 718, Pseudo-Shin Device. The Angel Device Raiment. It really is a Shin device. Zhuo sighed in praise. He looked down at the blue armor that tightly wrapped around him and the layer of faint but dense flames. The serene blue flames burned soundlessly. When he channeled Shin power, the angel device raiment would automatically form this kind of water blue flame. This caused the armor that appeared to have been made from layers of clear blue crystal to become even more beautiful. When Zhuo channeled a little over half of his Sun Shin power capacity, The snowy white wings would give off golden flames. When they moved, sparks would fall. These sparks were miniature shin fire. If one came into contact with it, they would adhere and burn until everything was ash. The serene blue and the gold flames intersected and shined, yet they did not give off any presence. Their ability to conceal themselves was greater than any Yao art or spell that Zuo-mo knew of. There was a faint tinge of blood over Zuo-mo's vision. He could easily see the sea through over 3 zhang of thick rock. Even deeply hidden Jinji were clear to his eyes. The more he used it, the more Zuo-mo liked it. There was no hindrance when he channeled Shin power into it, and when he wore the angel device raiment, he could activate a Shin technique using less than 8/10 of the Shin power it normally took. Zuo-mo had Tseng Lianer try as well. When Tseng Lianer channeled moon Shin power, the angel device raiment would flash with a faint moonlight. What was most fantastical was that when the wings danced, a crescent moon would occasionally appear and the Shin power shedding off it was sharp instead. Ague was the eeriest. When she wore the angel device raiment, the dark red mask would become purple and the snowy white wings would become as black as ink and give off faint black mist. The blue armor would also become pitch black. If she stood there and did not move for over 3 breaths, she would disappear into the darkness like smoke. As expected of a Shin device. Before this, Zuo-mo had not thought that the angel device raiment would be a Shin device. Now that the old man pointed it out, he immediately tried and many places that had puzzled him were now clear. He reluctantly took the angel device raiment off. He now understood its value. The old man was right. The angel device raiment was something he desired, but also a hot potato. Also, Zuo-mo was willing to trade it for something useful for Ague. The angel device raiment was good, but Zuo-mo had confidence that he would be able to forge even better Shin devices in the future. Strictly speaking, the angel device raiment was only a pseudo-Shin device, and not a true one. What worried Zuo-mo more was the undying Shin power in Ague that had started to change. Neither Pu Yao nor Wei had heard of the undying Shin seal, but the two did not feel the old man had been lying. Zuo-mo moved his gaze away from the angel device raiment and asked, "What do you think of the old man?" "The old man cultivates Shin power," Pu Yao said coldly. His eyes were narrowed. A cold light moved through the blood pupil like a blade revolving in the sunlight. All the signs indicated that Pu Yao was not in a good mood. He had always been the strongest support behind Zuo-mo. No matter if it was Yao arts, spells, mo skills, he had guided Zuo-mo. Yet in the blink of an eye, as though it was a dream, he found that the world seemed to change. People that cultivated Shin power and were stronger than him had appeared. The strong return of Shin power had caused this world to become unfamiliar, and this tide was not something that an individual's power could reverse. This made Zuo-mo feel dispirited, and Pu Yao, who was extremely competitive, disliked this feeling. He is very strong. Even in my era, he would be strong. Wei's expression was unusually grave. He had existed for longer than Pu Yao, from the last stages of the ancient era to now, and to the era of Shin power returning. Those memories that had almost disappeared gradually started to become clear again. Yet, while he seemed to have known them, the memories felt completely different. This was going to be a new era. Pu Yao quickly calmed down, and he buried the cold glint in his eyes. As one of the strongest in the world at his time, Pu Yao possessed a strong mind and unparalleled calmness. He feels enmity towards you, but it seems that he isn't your enemy. He is very friendly towards Ague, and should have a deep connection to her. Yes, even in our era, the scap fragrance is a very rare treasure and has unique effects to calm the soul. I hadn't thought there would be scap fragrance here. They definitely have a deep relationship. Otherwise, he would not freely give such a valuable treasure. Wei nodded and agreed with Pu Yao's speculation. Wei would only not be a nag when he was discussing serious matters now. Zuo-mo nodded as well. His thoughts were about the same as the other two. He knows my identity, that means that he has paid attention to me for a long time. He has a deep relationship to Ague, so it is very likely he knows my origins. Next time I have to learn this. Zuo-mo had a thoughtful expression. When the angel device raiment is being sold, he will definitely be observing from the shadows. There will be a chance to meet with him again. But the angel device raiment is a big problem. When he spoke of this, Zuemo couldn't help but grimace. Actually, before the old man's reminder, he had detected something from the tsunami of invitations. Yet when the secret of the angel device raiment, being a pseudo-shin device, was revealed, he knew that trouble was still ahead of him. It was a good idea to trade the angel device raiment for those treasures, but if he was the least bit careless, the situation would spiral out of control. This was the first pseudo-shin device that had appeared in so many years. There were many people that were willing to risk anything to get it. It is slightly troublesome, Pu Yao said coldly. If they scheme, your identity is a sensitive one, you cannot expose Shin power, Tsung Lianer and Ague cannot fight. Zuemo's brow furrowed. Have rare artifacts Hall come protect us? Pu Yao snorted. They don't know that the angel device raiment is a pseudo-shin device. If they knew, the first ones with devious ideas will be them. Also, this time, the ones that are coming are the big names, rare artifacts Hall cannot stop them. Zuemo found this was very troublesome. Pu Yao was right. This time, the ones who had come were big names. Mo Shin Temple, Tian Huan, Kunlun, the Yao Council of Elders, all the Mo marshals, and hidden experts like the old man who were of unknown origins but had unfathomable power. If those people tried to do something to him, rare artifacts Hall could not stop him. Yet he could not expose his identity and fight. Use Jinji, Wei suddenly said, before they react. Set up a large Jinji, the seal formations and Mo matrices Jinji that Golden Crow Camp have studied are already mature. Golden Crow Camp. Zuemo stilled. It had been very long since he had communicated with them. The communication was usually one way, where he would send the results of his own studies back to Golden Crow Camp for them to study at regular intervals. The idea of setting up Jinji was a good one. If the Jinji he set was powerful enough, and he was in control, he would not have to worry about anything happening. But then he thought of the people coming. If they were not marshals, they were terrifying experts like the Mo gods. What level of Jinji could do that? Zuemo did not have Jinji that could suppress people at the level of marshals and Mo gods. If he had a year or more, he might be able to create one, but there was no time for him to think. Would Golden Crow Camp have such a powerful large-scale Jinji? Zuemo muttered inside. The present Golden Crow Camp was hundreds of times as large as in the past. Because of their rapid expansion, their original site was unable to hold so many people. The two masters found an intermediate-sized cloud island to be the base for Golden Crow Camp. This island was renamed Golden Crow Cloud Island. Golden Crow Cloud Island was the most famous center for seals, forging, and Mo weapons in Cloud Sijia. Along with the return of Lil Miss and Bihan, Cloud Sijia's rate of expansion rapidly increased. With almost an unstoppable presence, they took dozens of Jie in one push. Among those were Xiozha, Mo, and Yao Jies. Collectively, this was called Mo Cloud C. Mo from Zuemo, Cloud C for their origin of Cloud Sijia. The environment of Golden Crow Cloud Island was outstanding. There was an active volcano was tamed by the Golden Crow Camp using a fire formation that was hundreds of li long. They had also asked the Mist People to find some astounding high-quality cold caves under the mountain range of the thick Cloud Sea. The previous low-level members of Golden Crow Camp were now all in high positions and were influential people. Wei Chengbin started his daily task like usual. His composed face did not have the past wariness and youth. Wei Chengbin, who had been skilled in making miniature Jinji, was deeply trusted by the two masters. In these years he had worked tirelessly. Adding to the seal formations and Mo matrices in the Pu Wei library, his present skill level would be that of a grandmaster if he was outside Golden Crow Camp. But he was willing to stay in the heavily guarded Golden Crow Camp. Other than his research on the topics that interested him every day, the time that he anticipated the most was the reflections that Darren would send through the 10-finger prison occasionally. What Darren sent was the greatest secret in Golden Crow Camp. Other than the core members that could read them, they were not open to outsiders. And Wei Chengbin was responsible for receiving them and immediately organizing them. Wei Chengbin liked staying here, mostly because he could see the reflections first. For this duty, he had defeated some strong competitors to obtain this coveted position. Just like usual, what Darren had learned was passed over. He methodically imprinted the contents using high-level jade scrolls. Like he was savoring delicious food, he read word by word and didn't bear to finish reading. However, even the longest content would be finished at some point. But when Wei Qingbin reached the end, he froze. Darren required a large-scale Jinji? He only reacted after a long few moments. Without a second word, he sent out 2 paper cranes to inform the 2 masters. In a short amount of time, all the core members of Golden Crow Camp were gathered in one hall. Everyone was discussing the meaning of Darren's words. Of course, Darren's meaning was very simple. Everyone was just very curious, was Darren going to build a city again? In the preliminary battle strategies of Cloud Siege, defense had been the most important, so Golden Crow Camp had invested great amounts of energy and resources into that. The 2 masters saw more from Zhuamo's words. The stronger, the better. This was Darren's focus. The strongest. The 2 exchanged a look. Sun Bao said gravely, "How about that set?" The entire place immediately became silent. Everyone knew which set Master Sun Bao was talking about. Many people acted to speak, but everyone still remained silent. That set. Chapter 719. That set of Jinji. Everyone in Golden Crow Camp knew of the set of Jinji that Master Sun Bao spoke of. Influenced by their initial expansion strategy, the study of Jinji had always been popular on the island. At that time, Guard Camp had been having their MO matrices engraved and activating bloodlines, meaning this was the time when the study of MO matrices had been the most popular as well. A person who usually was not very eye-catching suddenly suggested a crazy idea. Use seal scripts as the structure and fill it with MO matrices. Many people had been studying the Jinji of the MO, especially the large amounts of valuable Jinji that Pu Yao and Wei had provided, that had broadened the vision of Golden Crow Camp. However, no one had thought of merging the 2 together. This person had actually found an outstanding seal script framework. So when he threw out his idea, it had attracted almost everyone in the camp. Interested, they had started to help him perfect this extra-large Jinji. The creation of large-scale Jinji was an extremely complex and vast work. It was made from countless little seal formations. This number might be 100,000, it might be 1,000,000. A person alone, even if it was an expert like Zhuamo, would need many years to create something like this. Yet when all of Golden Crow Camp started to work with the 2 masters managing, their progress was rapid. After spending 2 months of time, a super Jinji of unprecedented complexity and size finally took form. Because it had been created by everyone, and their preferences and skills had been different, it was possible to see the influence of a number of styles. However, its main framework was outstanding and it was balanced. After the Jinji was finished, all of the camp was stunned by this Jinji. Theoretically, its power surpassed any kind of Jinji they knew of. This astounding conclusion excited the entire camp. Everyone agreed to actually create this Jinji yet, and at that time, there were many places that needed Jinji that they could use this at, but they quickly reached an obstacle. They found that the difficulty in forging the core seal formation far surpassed their abilities. No matter what they tried, they could not realize this fanciful dream. After working multiple months on it, and not having success, this Jinji was naturally placed to the side. Darren wanted the most powerful Jinji. Sun Bao's first thought was this Jinji. This basically is not realistic, someone objected. But when they finished speaking, someone argued, we can't do it, but it doesn't mean that Darren cannot. People thought, yes, Darren was a freak that built a city with only his own power. Maybe this thing could finally be realized on Darren's hands. Pass this to Darren, and let Darren decide if he will use it or not. In the end, it was Master Ji Wei that made the decision. Master Sun Bao nodded and agreed. This set of Jinji doesn't have a name, everyone, give it a name. Monkey Ming, you thought of the concept for the Jinji, give it a name, someone shouted from within the crowd. It caused a roar of laughter. Monkey Ming's true name was Ming Guanshan, but because he was short and thin, people called him Monkey Ming and he did not object. Monkey Ming's face flushed bright red. He stood up and said, "Everyone created this together?" "Ho, Brother Ming is trying to deflect the responsibility. As long as you don't call it Minggu Jinji, it's all fine." Another person teased and everyone laughed. Even Master Ji Wei smiled. "This Jinji came from your creativity, you should name it, do not refuse." Then someone shouted, "But it has to be domineering and impressive." Monkey Ming did not refuse. He tilted his head and thought for a while before he said embarrassedly, "Then it will be called the King's Forbidden Firmament." King's Forbidden Firmament. How is it? Have you enjoyed your days? Feng Xnz had a friendly smile on his face. Qinghua Shui bowed slightly. "Many thanks, Darren, for indulging me." Feng Xnz looked at the composed Qinghua Shui. A hint of admiration couldn't help but flash through his eyes. This really was a woman that could keep calm. Yet this type of woman was usually hard to deal with. Feng Xnz grimaced inside. After some more time, the Council of Elders will send people over. Do you know why? Feng Xnz said, "Angel device raiment." Qinghua Shui was not stupid. She was also around Zhuo and understood the general situation. Yes. Feng Xnz took a deep breath. He decided to be honest. The angel device raiment is a pseudo-Shen device, and in this era, up until now it is the first creation that is so close to a Shen device. It is very important to us. Looking at Qinghua Shui, who only smiled and didn't respond, Feng Xnz felt a headache coming. "I hope that you can help us. If you can give us aid, the Blue Flower family will receive a higher status among the Yao, and your brother will be able to receive the later stages of the Yao art he is studying," Feng Xnz said. Feng Xnz smiled slightly. "My brother's talents are limited. Even if he has the knowledge, it will be difficult for him to advance. With his personality, this kind of calm and ordinary life is the best for him. As to the Qinghua family, my family is a branch family, and have never refused our duty to the main family. I have heard a saying, the power that one enjoys should be paired with the appropriate responsibilities." Feng Xinz's admiration rose. Yes, power and responsibility should be equal. Then have the other people of the Blue Flower worry about that. However, I hope that, when it does not harm Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai, you can give us some conveniences. Qinghua Shui bowed and said, "Many thanks for your understanding. Pay attention to your safety. It will not be peaceful in the next while," Feng Xnz reminded. Qinghua Shui nodded. "I need to return." Finishing, she bid farewell to Feng Xnz, turned and walked inside. Returning to the inner compound, worry finally came up into her eyes. She knew Xiao Yunhai's identity, and knew that if his identity was exposed, it would be terrible. Focused on her thoughts, she did not notice her surroundings. When she noticed there was someone in front of her, she seemed to wake up from a dream. She lifted her head and saw Xiao Emogu gazing at her. Qinghua Shui was strangely alarmed, but she quickly recovered her calm. She bowed and said, "Darren." Zhuo waved his hand and set up Jinji around to stop people from eavesdropping. After doing this, he finally spoke. "Hey, we only fought once in the past, you don't have to chase me all the way here." Qinghua Shui stilled. She knew that Xiao Emogu recognized her. She smiled. "I'm just curious about you." Curious. Zhuo felt this explanation was too. He didn't know how to describe it. He asked helplessly, "Because of curiosity, you ran to the Mo territories?" "I had nothing else to do," Qinghua Shui said in a deliberately relaxed tone. Zhuo covered his forehead and sighed sorrowfully. He was completely defeated by this invincible reason. "Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Don't you know how dangerous?" "Will you?" Zhuo's expression froze on his face. A moment later, he snorted coldly and said, "Maybe. Do you know Guest's nickname in the past? They called me the Bloody Hand Butcher. If I haven't killed 10,000, I've killed at least 8,000. Qinghua Shui listened with a small smile and didn't interrupt. Was this woman's mind rusty? Zhuo felt for the first time that he didn't know how to keep talking. He shook his head and decided to put this problem to the side. From his observations in the past few days, This woman's mind wasn't normal, but she was still a reliable person. Since you have come, ye will not waste labor. Zhuemo muttered, go to the 10-finger prison, someone will find you. 10-finger prison? Someone will find her? Qinghua Shui was slightly puzzled, but she didn't ask. She nodded briskly. All right. Zhuemo was completely defeated. This girl was not normal, she didn't even ask. If the angel device raiment caused the entire world to have currents flowing under the surface, then the hot tide caused by the earth MO weapons was something that every person could feel. If one had to say who was in the worst mood right now, it was the merchants of Nether Spring Jia. For them, the reverse shadow soul silkgrass was rare, but they had 1 or 2 in stock. But Buzhou City was many jia away and they could only stare. Those were earth MO weapons. When Chuan traded for the Yin clear Li chakrams, people felt even more regret. At this time, inside a sky shark, a yellow-faced man stood silently in the corner. His appearance was ordinary, and his presence was not very strong, but his back was straight and his spirit could not be disguised. If Zhuemo was here and saw this figure, he would definitely blurt out eldest Shixiang. Wei Sheng. When the news that one could use reverse shadow soul silkgrass to trade for earth MO weapons spread, Wei Sheng instantly concluded that Xiao Yunhai was Zhuemo. He did not hesitate. After disguising himself, he started to travel day and night towards Buzhou City. Fighting in order to elevate himself had caused him to become a pond brimming with water. The content concerning Shen power that Zhuemo had sent him using paper cranes was the hand that brushed away the clouds and mist to show him a completely new path of the sword. On his journey he had synthesized Zhuemo's knowledge and comprehended a new method to use his mind to refine the god-killing blood sword. His presence became even more concealed, his sword essence more ethereal, and his past sharp edges had dissipated. He had gotten onto a sky shark. This way, he had more time to comprehend and meditate. While he could only just stand and there wasn't a place to sit, he quickly adjusted. If people in the surroundings noticed him, they would find to their surprise that Wei Sheng's presence was becoming even more ordinary. Even his spirit became fainter. This sky shark passed through many stops with people getting on and off. However, there were more getting on than getting off. The already tight quarters became even more crowded. While there were MO matrices that filtered the air, it was still crowded and humid inside. Sound of complaints occasionally sounded. Wei Sheng leaned against the way, his eyes half-lidded as though he was asleep. Suddenly, an imperceptible light flashed across his half-lidded eyes but then disappeared. Several sharp gazes swept across him and he didn't seem to detect them. The other's gaze quickly moved away from him. Chapter 720, Trembling in Fear, King's Forbidden Firmament. Zhuemo was astounded when he received it. He was skilled and was immediately sucked into the unique framework. His skill was far beyond those of Golden Crow Camp, and he quickly concluded that constructing this Jinji was plausible and extremely powerful. Even he didn't know how strong it would be. Zhuemo swept across, reading multiple lines at once. Just at a glance, he could know where there were mistakes in the details. Other than several extremely small flaws, there were actually no major mistakes in such a complex Jinji. This astounded Zhuemo. It had to be said that even those famous Jinji would usually have several weaknesses, but these weaknesses were just unknown. From Zhuemo's perspective, King's Forbidden Firmament was a super Jinji that was almost close to perfect. However, he could only know how powerful this novel structure that merged seal scripts and MO matrices together once he made the Jinji. An obstacle that was unsurpassable to Golden Crow Camp was not a problem at all for Zhuemo, who had the Sun Shen fire. The King's Forbidden Firmament deeply attracted him. He was extremely curious about its power. Without almost any hesitation, Zhuemo started to forge. After making the Angel Device Raiment and the 4 Earth MO weapons, Zhuemo's skill had almost reached the point of perfection. Not just in the MO territories, even in the Xiuzhi realms, his forging skill would not be lacking in comparison to those forging masters. He had enough materials and countless treasures. The strong feeling of danger caused Zhuemo to forget to rest and eat. Ian felt his heart beat wildly. Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai suddenly requested a terrifying list of materials. The types of materials on it were 10 times greater than last time. What did Grandmaster want to do? Did he want to forge Earth MO weapons again? Even a person as experienced as Ian couldn't help but inhale when he thought of this. When the 4 Earth MO weapons had appeared, Ian had been extremely excited. The amount of attention from all of the MO territories had caused him to see the glorious future of Rare Artifacts Hall. However, he smelt strong danger from the undercurrents caused by the Angel device raiment. As more and more people came to Buzhou City, he became even more anxious. Even the arrogant Tang family was docilely curled up by the side. Their battalion was stationed outside the city, but they didn't dare to send them inside. Even he knew that there were at least 3 martial levels in the city, and this number was increasing. Any martial would be enough to wipe all of Buzhou City from the map. In a fight between 2 martials, everything within 1,000 li would be flattened. If martials were in melee battle, Ian shook. He had put away Blue Horsefly a long time ago. Right now, he only hoped to get Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass from the 2 MO weapons and have the gradually uncontrollably situation cool down. Worried that the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass would excite Grandmaster, he had concealed the news that they had gotten 1 Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. He was waiting for the last 2 Earth MO weapons to be exchanged before he presented them to Grandmaster together. If Grandmaster saw the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass, was excited, and started to forge Earth MO weapons again. When the worried Ian saw the materials list that Zhuemo had handed, his expression changed. 10 times the previous amount of materials. With Grandmaster's skill, how many Earth MO weapons would it be? Was Grandmaster crazy? Did he want to become a wholesale supplier of Earth MO weapons? Ian, who had hurried to persuade Zhuemo to do otherwise, was stopped by Tseng Lianer. Zhuemo was forging the core parts of the king's forbidden firmament, and could not be disturbed. Ian immediately felt his head swell and didn't know whether to advance or flee. If he did not see Grandmaster, he could not persuade him otherwise. Also, Grandmaster had told him to prepare the materials at the fastest possible speed. If Grandmaster came out and saw that the materials were not be prepared, it would be terrible. No matter what, Ian did not dare to offend Zhuemo now. Ian decided to not care. If the sky fell, it would crush the tallest first. It was correct to first pander to Grandmaster. Returning to Rare Artifacts Hall, he had his subordinates start to prepare materials. There were no walls without holes in the world. Rare Artifacts Hall was the focus of attention by many, and the movement of so much materials could not be concealed. Grandmaster was going to forge Earth MO weapons again. The news quickly spread as though it had wings. After flying for 3 days and nights, the Sky Shark finally stopped. It needed to rest for an entire day. The passengers who had been suffocated inside the Sky Shark charged out like a flood and breathed in the fresh air outside. The merchants that had been waiting by the side immediately came over and warmly called at the customers. Wei Xing unnoticeably moved away from the merchants. He carefully followed behind that group of people along with the flow of people moving. There was no expression on his face, and there was only an occasional flash of cold that would flash through his eyes. Kunlun Sword Xiao. Those people were Kunlun Sword Xiao. Wei Xing was almost unusually sensitive to sword essence. While the others were disguised, there wasn't any slip-up, and their presences were concealed. They would not expect someone would be able to see sword essence so clearly. Detecting the unique Kunlun sword essence on their bodies, Wei Xing's murderousness rose. The individuals were strong, and should be inner sect members of Kunlun. Kunlun inner sect members on the Sky Shark that was only going to Buzhou City. Then their target was definitely Zhuemo City. Wei Xing suppressed the murderousness he felt and decided to first investigate thoroughly. Kunlun definitely wouldn't make such a major move for a few Earth MO weapons. They definitely had a goal unknown to others. They really are country bumpkins. Just a few Earth MO weapons is enough to excite them to this. Hua Shan couldn't resist complaining. There are too many people inside, it is smelly and stuffy, so irritating. Jean Ran comforted her. Shimmy, hold on for a few more days. When we meet up with Su Shirshu at Buzhou City, it will not be so difficult. Why didn't eldest Shixiang come this time? When Hua Shan mentioned Lin Qian, her eyes became full of admiration. If eldest Shixiang had come, that would be great. It has been so long since we saw eldest Shixiang. Jean Ran grimaced inside. He liked Hua Shan, but Hua Shan admired eldest Shixiang Lin Qian. It was difficult to feel jealous of eldest Shixiang, who was also his idol. In the sect, the great majority of female Xiao admired eldest Shixiang. The heavily bearded middle-aged person who had been silent all this time suddenly spoke. Your eldest Shixiang has other duties, he is working much harder. The two immediately closed their mouths. The middle-aged person was their Shirshu Lei Yi. Lei Yi Shirshu was one step into Fanshu. And if it wasn't that the mission this time was too important, the sect definitely would not have sent Lei Yi Shirshu. While Jean Ran and Hua Shan also had Yunying cultivation, Lei Yi Shirshu was multiple times stronger than them. More important than our mission this time? Hua Shan couldn't resist asking. Jean Ran was also curious. He knew that for this mission, the sect had sent out 2 Fanshu Shirshu and 7 Shirshu that were close to Fanshu. However, the death of the Xian Kong Temple Elder Corps meant that Kunlun did not dare to slack off in this mission. Lei Yi glanced at her and said coldly, "You have forgotten the sect rules? What you can ask and what you cannot ask, don't you know?" Hua Shan's face immediately paled and she trembled. Jean Ran at the side also felt intimidated. Suddenly, Lei Yi's eyes widened. "Friend, stop sneaking and introduce yourself." Wei Xing, who was in the shadows, grimaced inside. He was devout towards the sword, and the sword oath he had taken was deeply engraved into his mind. When he saw the sword Xiao of Kunlun, the sword oath would appear in his mind and his murderousness would unconsciously leak out. However, since the other had found him, he would not hide. He held the blood sword as he walked out of the shadows. "Wei Xing." Jean Ran's expression changed dramatically as he exclaimed. Hua Shan heard this and paled. Among those wanted by Kunlun, Wei Xing was among the top. His name among the younger generation was extremely well known, as eldest Shixiang Lin Qian praised him. Many disciples did not accept this. Wukong sword sect? That obscure primitive sect? They had never even heard of it. But no matter if it was out of wariness or competitiveness, Wei Xing's reputation was known among the younger Kunlun disciples. Lei Yi slowly said, "So you are Wei Xing?" His expression was cold. As though he was looking down at an ant, he said indifferently, "Since we encountered you, today is the day you die." Hearing this, Wei Xing raised the god-killing blood sword in his hand and bared his teeth. He said loudly, "This is what I want to say to you. All of you, come at me together." Jean Ran and Hua Shan stilled. They hadn't thought that Wei Xing would be so arrogant. Lei Yi's murderousness burned in his eyes. He snorted coldly, "You don't know your limits." He didn't take out his sword and just pointed his fingers at Wei Xing. This crack. In a flash, countless dancing electrical snakes erupted from his hands. The blinding light caused one's vision to turn white for a moment. Almost in a blink, the lightning reached a terrifying level. The ground underneath his feet silently turned to dust. Lightning! A shout with a unique rhythm, the lights suddenly exploded. The silver-bright light caused Wei Xing's vision to turn white. An irregularly shaped lightning bolt that was the thickness of an arm suddenly shot out of his finger, tore apart the air, and headed straight at Wei Xing. Boom! The deep thunder spread. The air between the two was taken over by the lightning in that moment. There was nothing faster than lightning. Before Wei Xing could block, the curving lightning was almost a hand length from his hand. He could clearly feel the destructive power contained in this lightning sword energy. If he was struck, he would immediately turn to dust. At this moment of life and death, Wei Xing's mind was unusually clear. The god-killing blood sword in his hand felt a threat and the blood light erupted. Wei Xing swung it almost without any thought. The small amount of Shin power that he had managed to form inside his body furiously flooded towards the god-killing blood sword with all of his Ling power. Chapter 721. Swear by the sword. Wei Xing's body shook, the air around him immediately turned blood red. marks of blood appearing on the body of the god-killing blood sword. A thick killing presence swept out. A blood-red curtain materialized with the sword swing. The thick lightning sword energy smashed against the blood curtain with the destructive power of nature. The blood curtain lit up. Howls of wild beasts roared from within, and threads of blood appeared on the blood-red curtain. Lei Yi's expression changed slightly. Both the blood curtain and the blood sword emanated a strong and savage presence. Lei Yi knew that people who cultivated sword scriptures like this would have their minds corroded over time to become bloodthirsty and cruel. This kind of sword shio was extremely dangerous. They didn't need any reason to kill people, and were true killing madmen. However, those that cultivated a killing sword would have difficulty advancing the further they got. They easily got lost in the bloodlust of killing and would walk to their own destruction in the end. Yet when he saw Wei Sheng clearly just now, under that terrifying curtain of blood, Wei Sheng's eyes were filled with devotion to the sword and his attachment to his belief. Even his presence was clear and honest without any hint of the insanity. With just a glance, Lei Yi detected Wei Sheng's stone-hard determination. In a flash, he thought of Lin Qian and unconsciously compared the two. Lin Qian was much better than this boy. Lei Yi instinctively thought this, but at this moment, his gaze met Wei Sheng's gaze. Behind the curtain of blood, there seemed to be something burning in that pair of eyes. Was it belief? Or stubbornness? It burned so hot, so determined, without any qualms or concerns. Even the thick blood curtain could not hide it. Lin Qian was much better than this boy, but in terms of attachment to the sword, he was slightly lacking. Lei Yi jumped in fright at the conclusion he had just made. How was it possible? The two shouldn't be able to be compared at all. Who was Lin Qian? He was the disciple with the most outstanding in talent and personality from hundreds of thousands of Kunlun disciples. He received the best mentorship, he was hardworking and never slacked off, he was born noble. Wei Sheng was from a rural little sect, starting as a low sword servant, but all of these thoughts flashed by like lightning. Lei Yi was paralyzed in shock at his own thoughts. This boy could not be left alive. This thought exploded like thunder in his mind. Killing intent immediately filled his entire body. Countless little bolts of lightning swam around his eyes. His hair danced in the wind. Lightning shrouded his body, and his presence reached a peak. At this moment, he didn't have any cares about exposing his identity. There was only one person in Lei Yi's eyes, only one thought. No matter how, no matter the price he had to pay, this boy had to die. Blocking the other's strike, the god-killing blood sword in Wei Sheng's hand immediately became excited. It rang and hummed in Wei Sheng's hand and tried to break free of his grip. Wei Sheng's hand seemed to be forged from steel and didn't move a sliver. The battle spirit in his eyes burned even hotter. Gripping the god-killing blood sword, Wei Sheng's body bowed slightly, curling inward into a ball. However, his slightly raised face was unparalleled in its determination. Swear? By the sword. The words came from deep within his chest, spoken with great confidence and a steely determination. It was like a hammer smashing against their minds. The ringing of the god-killing blood sword in Wei Sheng's hand suddenly stopped. As the last word was said, Wei Sheng's sword was slowly swung as though it was thousands of caddies heavy. The marks of blood on the sword seemed to be attracted by a great force, floating up from the sword and slowly spinning around the blade. Lei Yi felt extreme danger. The lightning energy in his eyes grew. A silver and uniquely shaped flying sword appeared in front of him. This flying sword seemed to be a section of a lightning bolt, about 1 zhang long and irregularly shaped. There were many splits like branches of a tree. It twisted and turned. It was completely silver, and the material that it was made from was unknown. Lei Yi's famed flying sword, Sky Lightning Branch. When the Sky Lightning Branch was pointed to the sky, the cloud layer within hundreds of li suddenly gathered towards the space above his head like an avalanche. In a moment, there were black clouds gathered above Lei Yi's head that stretched endlessly. The sky immediately became as dark as night. This crack, the sky suddenly lit up with a twisted and burning bolt of lightning. The lightning landed on the Sky Lightning Branch, and the sword lit up. This was just a start. As the lightning continued to strike the sky lightning branch, it became almost as bright as the sun. An astounding amount of lightning surrounded it. The lightning accumulated in the cloud layer within hundreds of li, all gathered on it. The sky lightning branch seemed to be alive as it moved within a thick ball of lightning. The entire city was disturbed by such a great noise. "Stop," Amo shouted angrily. "Are you crazy?" "Careful, they are Xiuzha." Lei ignored them. A cold smirk appeared at the corner of his mouth. His eyes that flashed with lightning were icy. Some Mo tried to come closer. Several bolts of lightning suddenly shot out of the gathering ball of lightning and struck them. The lightning flashed, and there was nothing left where the people had been floating there. The other Mo all changed expression. No one dared to come close. Jin Ran and Hua Shan looked excitedly at Lei Yi Shixu. While they had known that Lei Yi Shixu was unfathomably powerful, they were still greatly amazed when they saw it with their own eyes. Lei Yi was like a lightning god on earth. He looked on coolly, his index and middle finger pointing out together. His eyes were wide as he shouted, "Die!" The sky lightning branch within the ball of lightning suddenly turned into an unusually thick bolt of lightning that dove towards Wei Xing with an unstoppable presence. The lightning was like a great enormous silver sword with a terrifying presence as it split the sky. The blinding silver light illuminated the world, reflected in countless pairs of terrified eyes. The power of nature amazed everyone. This sword strike contained the power of the lightning in the world. People were unable to make out if it was lightning or sword essence. Yet in this patch of silver-white lightning, a blood curtain seemed to slowly, yet determinately spread. The deep voice from within the blood curtain was so clear and so determined. Even in front of the power of nature, it did not submit at all, and did not tremble. By the offering of Kunlun blood. By the offering of Kunlun blood? Lei Yi's eyes turned even colder. All the Ling power in his blood flooded out without any regard for consequences. The sky lightning branch at the tip of that curving twisted lightning bolt trembled. The surrounding lightning became even denser. It pierced the air, and shot at Wei Xing at a speed hard to detect with the naked eye. A hint of joy flashed across Lei Yi's cold eyes. An indescribable understanding appeared in his mind. With this sword strike, he had touched Fanshu, and touched the fundamental rules of the world. His cultivation that had not improved for a long time broke through at this time. He was so happy he wanted to howl at the sky. At this time, he suddenly saw out of the corner of his eyes an unusually bright and thin blood line follow the path of Wei Sheng's sword strike. It penetrated the blood curtain and headed straight for the lightning striking down out of the sky. The blood line wasn't any slower than Lei Yi's strike. Lei Yi's eyes widened. How was that possible? Compared to the thick lightning created by the sky lightning branch, the blood line was so thin it was almost overlooked. Compared to the astoundingly destructive presence of the sky lightning branch, the thin line of blood didn't have any presence. It appeared in front of the sky lightning branch seemingly without any warning. Both attacks were extremely fast, so fast that both sides could not react at all. A strange dissonant howl rang out. The blood line was like an extremely sharp knife that cut across tofu. The strangely shaped and seemingly alive flying sword, sky lightning branch, which caused the thick lightning and changed the color of the sky, was split apart by this nondescript thin line of blood. Split into two. The blood line that sliced through the lightning disappeared from Lei Yi's vision. Before he could react, he suddenly felt as though a slippery thing flashed through his mind. He had never felt something so strange. A ruler-straight mark appeared on the small embryo that had started to form in his body. An embryo that now faded into nothingness. Lei Yi's eyes went wide. His expression was slightly puzzled. An extremely small and straight mark of blood slowly appeared on his face and body. The puzzlement in Lei Yi's eyes gradually turned into great terror. This was Shun power. The blood which contained Ling power sprouted from that blood mark that traversed his body. His vision turned bloody red. His remaining Ling power could feel the presence of his two nearby disciples who were now just like him. Bewildered, endless darkness came at him. He seemed to hear a noise and then he lost consciousness. What he didn't know was that their fresh blood had turned into 3 blood arrows that was absorbed by the god-killing blood sword. The world was covered by silver light. The lightning that lost control was a savage power. It exploded. The bright light forced people's eyes closed. All of their senses were useless in front of such a savage explosion. Everyone's minds were blank and they were like branches swept up in a flood. Wei Sheng's face was pale and bloodless. He held the god-killing blood sword with a death grip and allowed it to carry him among the turbulence. In the moment he touched ground, his legs gave out and he almost fell over. After killing such a strong enemy, there was no joy on his face. There was faint sorrow in his mind. However, his mind was strong and he quickly broke free of his sorrow. There was a bitter smile on his face. This god-killing blood sword was powerful, but with his power he only had enough for one strike. After that one strike, he would be exhausted and wouldn't have any power to fight back. That strike just now didn't just take all the Ling and Shen power in his body, it had also used almost 1/5 of the blood in his body. Wei Sheng had never cultivated a Mo physique. His body was not on a level comparable with Zuo. 1/5 of all his blood was enough to almost kill him. Right now, he had no power and he didn't know when he could recover. For Xiuhe, the blood in their bodies was their purest source of power. If it was used it was difficult to recover. Shaking his head, Wei Sheng did not feel any regret. The sword oath he had vowed was set in his heart. Not just 1/5 of his blood, even if he lost his life, he would not regret it at all. However, he could not go on like this to Buzhou City. Wouldn't he become a burden to Shidi? At this time, the god-killing blood sword in his hand suddenly moved and started to pull him down into the ground. Wei Sheng was shocked. He felt as though he was sinking into water without any sluggishness, and quickly sank down into the earth. The god-killing blood sword continued to pull him downwards. Chapter 722, Progress Deep Underground. Wei Sheng's eyes were tightly closed and his face was as white as paper. Suddenly, a thread of blood came out of the body of the god-killing blood sword. The blood flow quickly increased. With the streams of blood coming off the sword, it appeared as though it was just pulled out of a pool of blood. The viscous blood seemed to be alive as it inched along the sword, climbing onto Wei Sheng's sword hand and up onto his arm. Blood continued to come out of the god-killing blood sword, and then visibly seeped into Wei Sheng's body. Color began returning to Wei Sheng's white face. In the earth, Wei Sheng did not give off any presence. There were thousands of parts piled up in mountains around Zuo, each one a different shape and design. He didn't rest, eat, or drink for 5 whole days, one part after another forming in his hand and then being thrown onto the mountainous pile next to him. Even with Zuo's strong Mo physique, his body showed clear signs of weariness and exhaustion. However, the Sunshin fire in front of him was unusually steady and didn't tremble at all. Zuo's astounding forging skill was perfectly displayed. Another part was finished. He stopped and shoved a handful of Lingdan into his mouth. He carefully felt Ling power surge into his dried channels. The Sun Seed was best for recovering Shen power, but Zuo couldn't bear to use them. But he had a huge pile of Lingdan in his ring, and he could waste them as he wished. With every Sun Seed used of his finite supply, there would be one less. Taking the time while his Ling power was recovering, he examined the King's Forbidden Firmament again. The Jinji that Golden Crow Camp had designed naturally leaned more towards seal formations, and the King's Forbidden Firmament was not an exception. While it used Mo matrices, it was still mostly seal scripts. The seal scripts made up 7/10 and the Mo matrices 3/10 of the Jinji. Zuo's spell level had been exercised greatly by the astounding number of things forged, and adding on the aid of the Gravestone Oath, Zuo's weakest skill, spells, had improved rapidly. Right now, it had reached the 2nd class and was the same as his Yao arts. After his greatest shortcoming was amended, his power had quickly increased. According to PUS system, Zuo's present Shen power level was intermediate earth level, and his Shen technique was 2nd class. However, it was far behind the Rhinoceros Mo god. The Rhinoceros Mo god's Shen power level was late earth level, and his Shen technique was 1st class. If he didn't have the little Mo treasure cup, Zhou Mo could not even hope to match the rhinoceros Mo god. But after his Shun technique reached second class, Zhou Mo's forging speed became even faster. His control of Sun Shen fire reached an astounding level. This meant that he would almost never make mistakes. The quality of the parts that he forged using Shun power far surpassed the level that Golden Crow Camp had required in their design. Altogether, there were 18,000 parts. Each part was a work of art, the perfect merging of Mo matrices and seal scripts giving off an unique beauty. Zhou Mo found after forging these parts that the effect of Shen power in forging was even more outstanding. Shen power and Shen fire could almost completely purify the impurities in materials, and inscribe Mo matrices and seal scripts into the material. This kind of inscription was completely different from Ling power and was closer to a natural growth. Other than the astounding rate of Shen power expenditure, Zhou Mo was overjoyed at its effects. Zhou Mo used a new forging method for all the core parts. He called it the Shun forging method. Of the 18,000 parts, he forged 81 using the Shun forging method. What was another happy surprise to Zhou Mo was that he found the Shun forging method could greatly increase the skill of Shun techniques. The skill level of Shun techniques was determined by the control level of Shun power. Previously, Zhou Mo was only able to increase his Shun technique power through increasing his 3 powers. With the Shun forging method, he could use it to increase his Shun technique and control for multiplied effects. However, Zhou Mo had tested. Not all materials could be used with the Shun forging method. Materials under 6th grade would turn to ash when the Shun forging method was used. Zhou Mo found several kinds of patterns from the gold leaf that were close to Mo matrices and seal scripts. He called them Shun glyphs. He had used one on the angel device raiment, and it had been the simplest one. Zhou Mo had now mastered 2 Shun glyphs. Other than the one he had used on the angel device raiment, he had one other Shun glyph. Materials that could support Shun glyphs had to be at least 8th grade. The reason for at least was because Zhou Mo had tried with a 7th grade material and then watched as it turned into a pile of ash. He had some 8th grade materials, but he didn't bear to use it to experiment. Only now did Zhou Mo feel shocked by the grade of the Mo weapon rudiments he had created with the weapon layer craftsmanship. They were able to tolerate Shun glyphs, didn't mean they were at least 8th grade? This caused Zhou Mo to be filled with interest about the weapon layering craftsmanship. While general-level Mo weapons were expensive, but as long as it was a Mo weapon, it could be bought. But 8th grade materials were not things that could be bought with Mabe. It definitely was a profitable business to use general-level Mo weapons to convert to 8th grade materials. Little Mo Goose suppressed his urges to do business. He felt the recovering Shun power turn into the 3 powers and then slowly into Shun power. He once again went back to forging. 10 whole days. When the last part was finished, Zhou Mo looked at the mountain of parts in front of him with a feeling of accomplishment. 18,000 parts. He had finished in 10 days. While he had finished all the required parts, he did not set up the Jinji immediately. He shoved a great number of Lingdan into his mouth and entered meditation. Only he would dare to use so many Lingdan at once. If it was a Xiuzhe, their Ling channels would rupture and explode. Zhou Mo's Mo physique was powerful, and his channels were much stronger than other Xiuzhe. His Ling power could also turn into other powers and reduce the stress on his channels. 3 days later, he opened his eyes again. The faint Great Day matrices appeared on his eyes with an indescribable aura. All of the power in his body, and his tired mind had recovered to peak condition. Standing up, he waved his hand lightly and the mountain of parts in front of him disappeared into the air. Ian was very happy when Grandmaster summoned him immediately after leaving seclusion. This showed that Grandmaster trusted him, but when he learned that Grandmaster had not forged Earth Mo weapons, Ian was slightly disappointed. If Grandmaster forged Earth Mo weapons, he could pick 2 for free. However, he was more relieved. As long as there were no more Earth Mo weapons, the situation which was already so tense that a spark could ignite it would not be further exacerbated. Ian felt fear at the dangerous situation of Buzhou City. But Grandmaster's next words caused him to pale and almost jump up. Grandmaster, please do not. The present Buzhou city is a barrel of dynamite, it might explode at any movement. If you leave the city now. Ian wanted to persuade Zuo away. Zuo knew his worry and comforted, "It's fine, we will be careful and no one will know. You are familiar with the region, do you know any place nearby that has a river, mountain, and earth fire?" Dennis' expression was frantic as he opened his mouth to speak. Zuo saw his expression and waved his hand to stop the other. He said, "Don't persuade me otherwise, I also know it is not safe outside. However, if something happens, can you keep me safe?" "This is relatively safe," Ian said. "Relatively safe?" Zuo smirked coldly. "If the marshal comes, is it still safe? If it is 2 marshals, is it still safe? 3? There are at least 5 marshals in the city." Ian broke out in a cold sweat and couldn't think of any counterarguments. Zuo waved his hand and said gently, "This cannot be blamed on you. I have to consider the worst-case situation. Is there any place nearby that satisfies my needs?" Ian did not argue further. Since Grandmaster knew, then he definitely had some move that Ian didn't know. He thought for a moment and then his eyes lit up. He said, "About 700 li northwest of Buzhou City, there is a place called the Grave Ghost Mound. It has a river, mountain, and earth fire. However, that place is heavy with Yin energy and ghost fiends frequently appear. It is also not a populous place." Zuo heard this and didn't hesitate. "Then we'll go to the Grave Ghost Mound." Ian gritted his teeth and nodded. "Grandmaster, please wait for a moment." A short while later, the elite guards of Rare Artifacts Hall finished gathering. Zuo's gaze swept the 70 guards in front of him and nodded inwardly. Rare Artifact Hall was really an old faction with a long history. Just these 70 people represented a considerable amount of power. Especially that guard leader with the indifferent expression, he was marshal level. Zuo could not imagine a marshal willing to act as a guard leader for a business. No wonder Rare Artifacts Hall was so confident. They had such an expert, and naturally did not fear. Zuo's gaze swept around. Agu, Seng Lianer, and Bean Sprout were all here, and only Qinghua Shui was missing. What was that woman doing? Zuo was puzzled and was about to ask Pu Yao when his vision blurred and Qinghua Shui appeared and bowed. "Sorry for the wait." The moment that Qinghua Shui appeared, the guard leader's expression changed, and his pupils contracted. Zuo examined Qinghua Shui. His expression did not change, but he was shocked inside. "Pu, what did you do to her?" Zuo immediately asked Pu Yao in secret. He remembered that Pu Yao had Qinghua Shui go to the 10-finger prison and most likely had passed something to her. However, the increase in her power was so great it was slightly terrifying. Pu Yao was lazy. "Nothing major, I coincidentally had a completed blue flower on my hand so I gave it to her." "Just that?" Zuo didn't believe it. Pu Yao said amusedly, "The blue flower family are a bunch of idiots and wasted such a good seed. Her calmness is shocking, and she is the calmest person I have ever seen. She is born to cultivate the blue flower. Her accumulation is so great you cannot imagine it. However, she didn't have the following parts of the art, so she was stuck at her previous level. Can you imagine it? The previous her compared to when she was 13 hasn't changed much. The blue flower family has no eyes. However, if she was not so calm, after being stuck for so many years, she would have exploded a long time ago. That is too exaggerated." Looking at Qinghua Shui, Zuo was still amazed. There was such a freak in the world. Chapter 723, A Snowy Blue Flower Taking Advantage of the Cover of Darkness. Under the protection of the Rare Artifacts Hall guards, the group secretly left the city that night. A journey of 700 li was not far for them. Out of consideration for safety, when they left the city, they suddenly sped up. They did not spare the endurance of their mo steeds and flew at top speed. The moon and stars were bright, the night wind howled, and the group all had extremely grave expressions. If one had to say who was under the most surveillance in Buzhou City, it was undoubtedly Zuo. While there was a blood pool deep in the compound that led out the city, This did not guarantee that they would not attract any attention. As expected, when they were just 30 li outside of the city, they noticed people trailing them. The guard leader of Rare Artifacts Hall's expression did not change as he said coldly, "Team 2, stop them." 7 guards quickly left the ranks and charged towards the enemies following them. Their mission was not to kill the enemy but delay them. The guard leader glanced at Zuemo, seeing Zuemo's calm expression. A hint of praise flashed through his eyes. He moved his gaze away and ordered, "Burning fire medicine." The other guards heard this and each took out a bright red medicinal pellet, then shoved it into the mouths of the Mo steeds under them. The eyes of the Mo steeds immediately filled with blood and their speed doubled. Faint sorrow flashed through the eyes of many guards. These Mo steeds had mostly followed them for many years, and were their companions. The burning blood medicine could activate their greatest potential, but when the effects passed, they would die. The effects of the burning blood medicine was clear. The Mo steeds were of extraordinary quality to start, and fast. Now that their speed doubled, they instantly left the people behind in the dust. Some guards released a breath. The pressure of the mission this time surpassed any of their previous missions. Zuemo and Tseng Lianer exchanged a look of seriousness. Even with their increased speed, they had not managed to throw everyone off. There were at least 3 people still following closely behind. Qinghua Shui seemed to detect it as well. She looked at Zuemo. Other people thought that Xiao Yunhai was just a Mo weapon master, but she knew that Xiao Yunhai was Xiao Mo Gu. She knew Xiao Mo Gu was strong. Detecting Qinghua Shui's gaze, Zuemo's mouth did not move, but his voice passed clearly into her mind. Mind-speech art. Qinghua Shui was slightly shocked. She hadn't thought that Xiao Mo Gu would even know such an obscure Yao art. There are 3 behind us, and when something happens, you will be the first to attack. Pay attention and try to lead them to a place without people. Qinghua Shui imperceptibly nodded. She was intelligent and immediately understood what Zuemo intended. Of all of them, only she could fight without any reservations, so she naturally became the main fighting force. Her mind was calm and restful. She was not excited at all about the battle about to come. If this was any other person and their power had just skyrocketed, their fighting spirit would most likely be high now. Suddenly, a dangerous shadow appeared in the calm lake of her mind. Qinghua Shui's expression was calm as the fingers on her right hand pointed behind her. The Yao art that had been prepared left her hand was revealed. A blue ray of light flew out of her hand and, like a soft ribbon, circled around and then shot behind her. Blue flower fulfillment wrapping technique. If the Blue family patriarch was here, he would be greatly surprised. The blue flower fulfillment wrapping technique was a secret of the Blue family that only the main branch could learn. Even in the present family, there were less than 5 members that could use this technique, and all of them were elders older than 40 years. Qinghua Shui had a clear understanding of her power and her position. With Zuemo and the others as support behind her, she did not need to hold anything back. At the same time, her left hand rose. There was a blue bat on her wrist. This blue bat looked adorable without any hint of killing energy like a pet. Blue flower bat. The blue bat opened its mouth and gave off a few squeaks. A faint handful of blue light shot out of the blue bat's mouth. Within the area covered by the blue light, a figure appeared. The other hadn't thought that Qinghua Shui's Yao art was so strong. Caught off guard, he was struck. When the blue light touched the body, it turned into a dense blue fire that clung onto the person's body and burned. The other's disguise immediately disappeared and revealed his true appearance. A bright red ling armor with many places covered in a layer of blue flowers. He looked disheveled. Xiozha. The other guards were astounded. While they knew that Xiozha had managed to sneak into the Mo territories for the angel device raiment, they hadn't thought that the Xiozha would be so daring. Between experts, a misstep in one moment would mean losing the advantage. Just as this Xiozha was forced to show himself by the blue light, the blue flower fulfillment wrapping technique silently wrapped onto the other's legs. The thin blue ribbon was unusually strong. Pia, the other's ling armor at his legs immediately shattered. A furious howl. A blue sword light shot into the sky like a hailstorm. Countless shards of ice spread. The blue light of the blue bat was actually blocked by these shards of ice. The blue flower fulfillment technique that had wrapped around the other was cut into multiple lengths by the sword energy. Zhuamo's pupils suddenly shrank, and a strong murderousness spread. Kunlun sword Xiao. What the other cultivated was Kunlun's famous glacier sword. It used the ancient and ever-frozen glacier as sword essence, and could freeze all. This person's cultivation was close to Fanshu and extremely powerful. While he had lost the advantage at the start, when he attacked, the presence was as different as expected. Qinghua Shui did not think that much. She was not so innocent to think that her 2 Yao arts just now were enough to kill the other. After her 2 Yao arts left her hand, she had begun preparing new Yao arts. Her wrist turned, the blue bat spread its wings and flew into the sky. Countless rays of blue light fell from the body of the blue bat. In the next moment, these thin rays of light formed a blue tower. The blue tower was covered in exquisite patterns. A blue bat stood guard at the top of the tower. Bat tower. The blue tower moved quickly. Like an enormous metal cage, it even enveloped the shards of ice. The iciness immediately dissipated, and the ice shards inside the tower disappeared at an astounding rate. Lu Han was both shocked and angry. He hadn't thought a single moment of inattention would cause him to end up in such a disadvantageous state. He usually was proud. When had he been left so disheveled before? Also, the enemy was just a little girl. If news of this spread, wouldn't his reputation fall to the floor? For the mission this time, the sect had really bled and sent out numerous experts. When the angel device raiment had appeared in the MO territories, it meant that Kunlun would not be able to obtain it through conventional methods. If they couldn't trade for it, they could only steal it. In order to not attract attention, the sword Xiao of Kunlun split into groups to sneak into the MO territories. Lu Han's group arrived the earliest and had been hidden near Buzhou City all this time to search for an opportunity. Out of wariness, he had set up several secret scouting bases outside the city. Tonight, these secret scouts finally became useful. However, he wasn't the only one to set up secret scouts outside of the city. During the pursuit, they had encountered many factions with the same goal. A melee battle had started, a short yet intense one. In the span of a few dozen breaths, almost all of the elite sword Xiao around him had died. In the MO territories, Kunlun didn't just lack advantages, they also were in enemy territory. If their identities were exposed, they would be surrounded and attacked by other MO factions. Lu Han was powerful and didn't lose the target. There were also 2 people who didn't get left behind like himself. His original intentions had been to sneak close to Xiao Yunhai, capture him, and then use him to control the situation. He hadn't expected that he would be found by Qinghua Shui just as he neared. In the intelligence he received, Qinghua Shui was an insignificant person. While she had fought against the head of the Tang family guards, but in the eyes of pseudo-Fanshu level Xiaozhe, strength of that level wasn't worth a mention. Yet they quickly found the details on Qinghua Shui. Qinghua Shui was born from a branch family of the Blue Flower family. The fact that she had been sent to join the envoy proved that the Blue Flower did not place any importance on her. Everyone had thought that she had appeared by Xiao Yunhai's side because Feng Xnz had gifted her as a maid to Xiao Yunhai. This speculation was appropriate to her status and identity. However, this woman that was thought to be a maid had put him in a sorry state. His first conclusion was that she was a secret piece that Feng Xnz had set down. Yet the time did not allow him to think on this further. The other's Yao arts came constantly like a noose continuously tightening around his neck. The blue light inside the blue tower was multiple times thicker than before. He seemed to have fallen into a bog. Each movement was difficult. Even stranger was that the speed of his Ling power circulation inside his body had started to slow as well. At this time, Lu Han didn't dare to underestimate Qinghua Shui at all. He moved all the Ling power in his body and shouted. The ice soul sword in his body was suddenly thrust into the ground. Snowy white icy frost quickly spread into the surroundings. Then immediately after, the ground around Lu Han started to tremble violently as though something was about to break out. Crack crack. Cracks appeared on the ground. Countless snowy white and icy sword essences flooded out of the ice cracks. 10,000 sword glacier. The ice swords that erupted from the ground could be counted in the tens of thousands. It was like a ferocious flood of ice swords. The cold edges almost tore the exquisite blue tower to pieces in the blink of an eye. The guard leader's expression changed slightly. Even he couldn't help but reach for his MO weapon at such a vast and furious sword essence. As expected of a Kunlun sword Xiao. Yet Qinghua Shui reacted a step ahead of him. She seemed to have expected that the blue tower would not be able to stop the enemy. The blue flowers that were torn up in the ice sword flood suddenly lit up faintly. It was like a group of fireflies flying in the night. The dots were beautiful mixed in the enemy's ice sword flood. Blue firefly pounce. Lu Han suddenly found that the ice sword flood was raging out of his control. He was stunned. There were dots of blue light within the ice sword flood. No matter what method he used, he was unable to remove them. It was these dots of blue light that caused his control of sword essence to falter. He had never seen such a strange Yao art before. He had never heard of the blue flower family having such a move before. Lu Han was astounded. The blue flower had some fame among the Yao, and Kunlun had relatively detailed records of the blue flower technique. After being defeated continuously, Lu Han felt fear. Then he looked at the rare artifacts hall guard leader waiting at the side. He knew that his plan had failed. If they continued to fight, the ambush would become a frontal assault that would not be advantageous to him. He was decisive and did not hesitate to move away and retreat. Qinghua Shui's inexperience in battle showed at this time. She hadn't expected that Lu Han would retreat without any warning. She was a step late in reacting. Just at this time, something suddenly happened. Chapter 724, An unexpected occurrence. Zhuo murderous intent was great, but he forced it down. It was not a good time to enter the fray now. Yet at this moment, a gray shadow suddenly flashed across his vision, and Zhuo's expression changed dramatically. A Gue seemed to appear out of thin air behind Lu Han. Her hand that flashed with purple energy soundlessly pressed against Lu Han's back. Lu Han did not seem to detect it and continued to sprint forward. The purple handprint on his back created an eerie purple streak of light in the night. He went just 3 more zhang and the purple light continued to corrode Lu Han's body. But Lu Han didn't seem to detect it and flew forward. Patches of purple energy disappeared in the air like leaves swept up by the wind. What disappeared with them was Lu Han's body. Everyone who saw this felt as though an icy wind swept across their hearts and their hairs stood up. The stony-faced rare artifact Hall Headguard's expression changed. Zhuo also changed expression at the same time. He thought this was bad. He didn't know why a Gue suddenly attacked Lu Han. A Gue was functioning on pure instinct, and she definitely had felt something. Had Lu Han in the past? Zhuo shook his head. This was not the time to think about this. It definitely wasn't possible to conceal a Gui's unexpected attack. There were 2 more people hiding in the shadows that would have seen her. Their identities would be soon exposed. Zhuo took a deep breath and calmed the shock inside. His mind was peerlessly calm. There wasn't much time left to him. He needed to finish the setup before these people managed to react. Right now, there wasn't enough time to run away. Those that were gathering were the strongest experts in the world. The probability of running away from these people was almost 0. Also, the reverse shadow soul silkgrass was almost here. If he ran away now, all of his efforts would have been for waste. Zhuo said gravely, "Go, hurry to Grave Ghost Mound." At this time, he did not hide his strength and flew with all his power. Agui, Tseng Lianer and Qinghua Shui heard this, didn't hesitate and flew at full power. A hint of shock flashed across the face of the rare artifact Hall Headguard before his expression became indifferent again. "All of you return first." "Darren," the other guards said panically, "you will not be able to participate in the upcoming battles." Then he leapt off the Mo steed to chase after Zhuo and the others. The other guards looked at each other. One person quickly said, "We need to hurry back to report to boss." The group did not hesitate and hurriedly returned. Zhuo looked at the head guard that had caught up to them. He was slightly surprised and said, "You don't have to enter this mess. I will naturally finish what boss has ordered," the head guard said gravely. A hint of admiration flashed through Zhuamo's eyes. "What is Sir's name?" "Quian," the head guard said coolly. Zhuamo nodded and didn't speak further. The group focused on traveling. Flying at top speed, they managed to cover 700 li in less than 2 hours. "This is the Grave Ghost Mound," Quian said. Without Quian's words, Zhuamo would still know they reached their destination. This place was so heavy with Yin energy that he could feel it from far away. Zhuamo was slightly surprised. Such thick Yin energy would not have naturally formed. He could feel the thick death energy mixed within it. He couldn't help but ask, "What is the history of this place?" Supposedly, during the ancient era, a great battle of over 10 tribes occurred here. Countless warriors fell on this place, and their ghosts were difficult to dissipate and turned into specters and Yin fiends. "However, that is just a rumor, and there is no evidence," Quian said expressionlessly. Zhuamo looked down and murmured to himself, "It probably isn't just a rumor." Quian's eyes suddenly lit up. Zhuamo did not look at Quian. His gaze swept across the Grave Ghost Mound. This place fulfilled all of his needs. It had mountains, water, and there was the smell of sulfur in the air, which meant that this place had earth fire. The Yin River here had been corroded by the Yin energy for a lengthy amount of time and really was a river of Yin energy now. Speaking just in terms of environment, this place was very suited to setting up the King's Forbidden Firmament. The Yin River was an unexpected surprise and could greatly increase the power of the Jinji. But for some reason, Zhuamo felt a thread of anxiousness. Zhuamo shook his head and threw the thread of uncertainty behind him. Even if there was something strange here, it could not compare to the immediate and apparent threat from the experts that would soon arrive. Mo Shin Temple, Kunlun, all the Mo marshals, the Yao Council of Elders. There was no need to count all of them, just these few was enough to rob people of courage. Zhuamo did not feel any fear at all. Even though a Gui's sudden attack had messed up all of his preparations, he felt relieved of a heavy burden. He no longer needed to be careful, did not need to conceal himself. It was as though he had thrown away all of the chains and qualms weighing him down, and he felt unspeakably relaxed. Thinking about how he was about to fight against the top experts famed in the world, fighting spirit filled his heart and his body with endless strength. To contend against the heroes of the world with just his own power. Just thinking about it caused his blood to boil. "So, Elder, you knew that Xiao Yunhai was Xiao Emogu already." The young Mo god had an enchanting smile on his face. He stood there lazily as though he was about to lay down and sleep. The old man that was in front of him grinned to show his missing and yellow teeth. "I would never admit that. I'm really curious, Elder, what is the relationship between you and Xiao Emogu? Relatives?" The young Mo god asked with a smile. The old man shook his head. "You are wrong, I don't have a good relation with him." "Then you are enemies?" The young Mo god shook his head. "It doesn't appear so." Stop guessing, you won't be able to get it right," the old man said unconcernedly. "The scab fragrance isn't something normal. While I don't hope that you will return it to me, but, Elder, you have to give an explanation. Otherwise, it will be a great embarrassment to me." The young Mo god spread his hands. The old man grinned and said, "This old man didn't break any promise. I said that he was able to force Shin devices. While the angel device raiment isn't a true Shin device, if you get it and study a bit, you may possibly be able to forge your own Shin device." The young Mo god sighed and said, "It seems that we will have to fight today." The old man urged, "Why? Everyone knows each other's power. You alone cannot beat me. If there are 2 of you, then I definitely cannot win. But only if there are 3 of you would I be unable to escape." "That's true. It seems that I can only bear the humiliation until they come," the young Mo god tiled his head and said. "But we will have to fight no matter what." The old man smiled. "You want me to help you delay? While I am very lazy, what can I do? What I won't be able to get, I'm displeased that the turtles behind me still aim for them." The young Mo god's expression was pained. Yes. The old man nodded repeatedly with agreement on his face. Also, you say that I cannot defeat you. I'm also displeased by this. The young Mo god raised his face and looked directly at the old man. His Shen power rippled. The usual laziness on the handsome face had disappeared, and what replaced it was unusual focus. This cased his face to have a light that was eerie and almost something that people could not directly look at. The stone around him seemed to be attracted by an invisible force and slowly floated upwards. Boom! A strong Shen pressure spun around him and grew stronger as it revolved. It pulled all of the power within dozens of li. It was like a twister that reached directly into the sky. His smile was still enchanting but unusually sharp. There's no way about it. There are many matters in the world that are displeasing, the old man grinned and said. He shook his head and stepped forward. His steps were not heavy, but in the moment he stepped onto the ground, boom, a deep rumble like that of a drum sounded. The ground within 100 li seemed to be stuck and shook once. A spiderweb of cracks spread more than 7 li with his right foot as the center. The cracks that appeared seemed to reach into the underworld, deep and bottomless. The young Mo god's twister shook. The top part of it suddenly lost control, turned into chaotic turbulence and scattered. The young Mo god's eyes narrowed slightly. The light that came from his narrowed eyes were sharp as blades. A smile spread on his mouth. There are many people that have come. The old man sighed. It seems that we need to show some actual skill. Otherwise, we aren't able to intimidate these people. I dislike doing hard labor. The young Mo Gold seemed to say to himself. His eyes lit up with a burning light. The gazes of the two collided in the air and sparks flew. The strength of the power vibrations produced by the fighting of two Shen power experts was like the sun in the dark of the night. Not just the nearby Buzhou city, even Zhou Mo a few hundred li away clearly felt it. Everyone in Buzhou city was startled away. In this period of time, the undercurrents and the continuously intensifying conflicts had been detected by many of the locals who left Buzhou city long ago. Right now, the majority of people in Buzhou city were outsiders. The remaining were large families such as the Tang family who thought they had the ability to protect themselves. But at such a time, the Tang family were on full guard. How could they not have detected such a great ruckus? Tang Chen's face was pale. The vibrations from the collision outside the city made even he, a marshal, feel his heart jump. Beside him was another middle-aged male. Beside the male was Qin Ming, Zhong Wentian, and Gongzi Shi, who were all standing solemnly. He was Marshal Di, who had secretly arrived this night. Marshal Di's expression was grave. Both are using Shen power. The shock on Qin Ming's face was difficult to disguise. All of them were martial experts. Even though they had Earth Mo weapons, they would have to use their full power to reach such a level. Yet the two seemed to be strolling in the park. The power ripples given off as they moved were able to upend an ocean. The youth is one of the 3 great Mo gods of the Emotion Temple. He is called Yoshia Ku. The old man's origins are unknown, Qin Ming said gravely. Marshal Di's gaze swept across the people. Seeing the expression on their faces and how they were clearly intimidated, he suddenly smiled and said, Wentian, if you and old Qin work together, do you have the confidence to fight Yoshia Ku? Zhong Wentian's eyes lit up as he rumbled, we can fight. The other 2 people's expressions eased. Yes. Marshal Di's voice was strong and powerful, adding on Old Tang and I, we have 4 marshals, and 4 Earth Mo weapons. If we count this way, that will be 2 Mo gods. We just have 1 less than the Emotion Temple. In this chaotic situation, we may have a chance. Everyone's confidence increased greatly. Then what do we do now? Tang Chen asked. Wait. Marshal Di's expression was at ease. We are not the strongest, and the timing of our action is most crucial. We must be successful on our first attempt. Old Tang, investigate and see what really happened when Xiao Yunhai left the city at night before the Shen power expert conflict. We need to keep our eye on Xiao Yunhai. He's the crux of this. Tang Chen did not hesitate. He nodded and said, all right. Chapter 725, Shen Power Warrior, the grave ghost mound was completely dark. Flying down, everyone felt the air was icy. Even Zhuemo was slightly intimidated. The thickness of the Yin energy in the grave ghost mountain was on a completely different level than what he had felt from when flying. It far surpassed his predictions. "Stay guard and protect me," Zhuemo said. "I probably need about 3 days of time." He had already finished forging all the parts of the king's forbidden firmament. While the setup was slightly troublesome, it would not be difficult for Zhuemo. However, he had to first survey the land to prevent an accident from happening in the middle of setup. If any one of the 18,000 parts was damaged, it would damage the power of the Jinji. Even more importantly, he did not have the time to reforge these parts. Qian nodded. Tseng Lianer and Qinghua Shui also stopped. Only Agu followed besides Zhuemo didn't know what to do. Sometimes, Ague would be very obedient, but would sometimes act in surprising ways. It was likely that Agui's instincts that detected something. Zhuemo realized this and didn't waste words. He pulled Ague along as he went deeper into the grave ghost mound. His expression became increasingly grave. The Yin energy was even heavier here, almost tangible. The air was a faint gray. The coldness of the surroundings bit into his skin like thorns, and Zhuemo had to channel his Great Day Mo physique to counteract the Yin energy. A thin layer of gold quickly appeared on his skin. The sun matrix on his forehead started to slowly revolve. Threads of warmth spread through his body and removed the coldness. Zhuemo reached out and grabbed Agui's hand. The warmth of his hand passed into Agui's body. Agui's body tensed and her hand gripped Zhuemo's hand even more tightly. Zhuemo turned and smiled slightly at Agu. Then he moved his gaze to pull Agu along deep inside. He was on full alert. The Yin energy was so heavy here that there definitely would be many specters and Yin fiends. Unexpectedly, after going 20 li deep, they hadn't encountered a single Yin fiend. Such an unreasonable phenomenon caused Zhuemo's wariness to rise. Zhuemo pulled Ague to inspect a range of 50 li and hadn't found a thing. Other than the unusually strong Yin power, there was nothing suspicious or dangerous. He did not continue to investigate. 50 li was enough to satisfy the requirements for setting up the king's forbidden firmament. More importantly, he didn't have the time to investigate further. The sky was starting to lighten. Zhuemo knew that those people in Buzhou City most likely had received the news of his escape. He had to effectively use his time. Zhuemo ignored the anxiousness he felt and started to set up the king's forbidden firmament. Zhuemo's guess was right. At dawn, the powerful factions at Buzhou City quickly received the information. Shocked, they quickly recognized the importance of this news. Yet the 2 Shen Power warriors that were fighting outside the city blocked the route off completely. Unless one was a martial or general expert, they would immediately die due to the lingering shockwaves of the collision between the 2 Shen Power warriors. Many factions had already tried. However, no one had managed to get through the area where the 2 were fighting alive. So Xiao Yunhai is Xiao Mogu. The news that Lu Han wanted to send back yesterday should be this. Ho Feng said gravely. He was a large figure, his limbs long, and there was a thick and broad sword on his back. Lei Yi's team is dead, Lu Han's team is dead. Bai Xiang's expression was grave and her tone low. She was Ho Feng's second in command. The 2 worked together on long-term missions and had good teamwork. I remember that the sect has information regarding Xiao Mogu? Ho Feng asked. Bai Xiang was familiar with all kinds of intelligence. She said without a hint of hesitation, "Yes, Xiao Mogu is one of our primary targets and our investigation of him has never stopped. Looking from the present information, Xiao Mogu is very likely to be Zhuemo." Ho Feng's brow creased. This name was unfamiliar. Zhuemo, a disciple of Wukong Sword Sect, an orphan that their sect leader took in. He lost his memory, and his origins are unknown. He is skilled in seal formations and ling farming. He was promoted from an outer sect disciple to inner sect disciple. His talent isn't bad. This is the earliest information we have found, Bai Xiang said smoothly. Wukong Sword Sect? Ho Feng's brow creased even deeper. I remember that all of Wukong Sword Sect, everyone except Wei Xing, should be dead. Because Zhuo Mo was sent to a remote location before the invasion of the Yao, he and Wukong Sword Sect lost contact. Together with him are Gong Sun Cha and one other disciple, Bei Xiang responded. Ho Feng changed expression. Gong Sun Lil Miss? Yes. Bei Xiang nodded. Wukong Sword Sect really has many talented people. I still remember that there is a Wei Xing, that one is also strong. Shui Dong greatly praised Gong Sun Cha. I hadn't thought that he would also be from Wukong Sword Sect. Yes, actually, we only found Xiao Emo's true identity due to Gong Sun Cha, Bei Xiang said. This means that Xiao Emogu and Xiao Yunhai were his fake identities? Ho Feng's brow was creased. In other words, he knows Mo's skills, Yao arts and spells? And Shun power and Shun techniques. Bei Xiang added. His origins is highly likely to be related to that storm 26 years ago. Ho Feng's eyes suddenly lit up as he murmured, no wonder. Bei Xiang's expression suddenly changed. Something has happened to Xia Li's team. Ho Feng's expression was slightly ugly and silent. Ever since the matter of Lin Qian fighting for the steel, managing Kunlun's activity in the Mo territories started to become difficult. Almost all the Mo were secretly fighting against Kunlun. This time, it was also true. If they were the least bit careless and their identity as Kunlun was leaked, they would be attacked from all sides. They had traveled far to arrive here, and fighting on foreign territory, their losses had been heavy. The sword shio that had been sent this time to the Mo territories were all elite from the sect, almost all of them Fanshu. Such losses were ones that even Kunlun couldn't shrug off. At this time, an extremely thin sword light appeared in front of Ho Feng. Ho Feng's reaction was quick. His hand beckoned and the sword light flew into his hand. The flying sword message of the sect. His expression showed joy. Return to the sect. Return to the sect? Bei Xiang stilled. The elders have come out of seclusion. Ho Feng's voice was low, but the joy on his face could not be suppressed. Bei Xiang also had a joyous expression as she said excitedly, great. We also have Shun power warriors. Now we don't need to fear the Mo Shun temple. Ho Feng said proudly, our Kunlun has led the Xiozha world for thousands of years. Can a little temple like the Mo Shun temple compare to the depth of our foundation? Then the angel device raiment? Bei Xiang said hesitantly. It is just a pseudo-Shun device, Ho Feng said with a smile. The sect has spent great time and energy and found some places that are possibly ancient ruins. The next step in the sect's plan is to go to these ruins to search for true Shun devices. Searching the Xiozha world, will we need to risk so much or waste so much effort? This is a good idea. I believe that there would be at least 1 or 2 Shun devices in so many ancient ruins. Bei Xiang was in agreement. Then she asked excitedly, then where have we been sent to? Return to the sect. Return to the sect? Bei Xian was puzzled. Ho Feng's smile could not be suppressed. We are in the second cohort to be taught Shun power. Once we return to the sect, we will start cultivating Shun power. Cultivate Shun power? Bei Xiang stilled, but then her eyes were full of longing. Ho Feng said, the era of Shun power is fated to be the era of Kunlun. The retreat of Kunlun was silent and didn't cause any waves. Other than those with good intelligence teams and those with high perceptiveness, everyone else was ignorant. Almost everyone's eyes were glued to the fight between the 2 Shun power warriors outside the city. Personally, seeing the fight between Shun power users was completely different than seeing it through mirages. The power as they moved which could destroy the world. A feeling of suffocation that never seemed to end. Each person felt they were so minuscule and insignificant like ants. Even martial experts had to remain alert to break free of such a terrifying feeling. There wasn't any land left untouched within 200 li of Buzhou City. The ground seemed to have been plowed over and over. It was possible to see fissures forming webs that curved and twisted for dozens of li. The land was completely fragmented. No one dared to charge in. Even Marshal D and the other 3 maintained their silence as the fighting between the 2 intensified. The astounding power turbulence was something that even they were wary of. If someone charged in now, they would most likely become the target of the two and would receive destructive attacks immediately. The two fought for a day and night without any hint of exhaustion. The young emo god Yoshiaku was not surprising. What surprised people was that old man dressed in rags, of an unknown background, was an even match. But no matter who, if they saw this battle, they would make one conclusion. The power of Shen power was much stronger than those top MO skills. Shen power would soon become the peak power once again. A new era had already started. If there had been many people who had recognized this point previously, then after this public battle of the Shen power experts, this point was driven deep into people's minds. Kuai In's expression was wary. He was astounded by the intense fighting that was happening in the distance. For the first time, he was filled with desire towards Shen power. He had cultivated to the martial level. It would be extremely difficult to take another step up. Other than the king level that only existed in the legends, martial level was the highest level that all MO could reach. Ever since the first day he reached martial level, he was filled with confidence about his power. Yet the continuous appearances of Shen power warriors caused him to feel he was weak for the first time. He did not forget his duty. His gaze suddenly focused. Near the horizon on the opposite side of Buzhou City, several black dots suddenly appeared. There were people. Before he could give a warning, these little black dots grew large. They were so fast that they had appeared in front of him in a blink. These people were surrounding a beautiful female. Kuai In's gaze met the female's gaze. An unspeakable feeling suddenly rose. He was slightly dazed, but his reaction was quick. With a shake, he immediately became clear of it. Such a terrifying woman. When his gaze landed on the insignias on their clothing, his pupils immediately contracted and his expression changed. The Yao Council of Elders. Chapter 726 The Entrance of the Yin Energy Cave. This one is Ming Yi. Is Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai here? The divinely beautiful female said with a small smile. While her attitude was friendly, it was filled with great presence, and was difficult for people to resist. A serene voice seemed to come out of the black night. Grandmaster doesn't have the time, how about coming back after 3 days? Light rose at the horizon and the black of night was pushed back as dawn neared. However, Sung Lianer was in a place that seemed to be a bottomless void. She stood with her long red dress touching the ground. Her presence was different from Ming Yu's strong presence, ethereal and hard to grasp. Kuai In's face was slightly burning. He was a martial yet at just first contact, he was intimidated by the other's presence. He felt embarrassed. I have heard long ago that Miss Tseng is a lady of a famous family. You are just as the rumors say. Ming Yi smiled. Her eyes and teeth were bright and she was stunning. Sung Lianer smiled. I cannot compare to elder sister, below one person and above hundreds of thousands, power in your hands. With just a word, there are countless heroes willing to do your bidding. Ming Yi smiled. She turned and examined Qinghua Shui. A look flashed through her eyes. Are you Qinghua Shui? Qinghua Shui greets Elder Ming. Qinghua Shui bobbed slightly. The blue flower family did not have eyes, it is a pity. Ming Yi sighed lightly before staring at Qinghua Shui. I coincidentally lack an assistant. If you are willing, you can follow and work for me in the future. Qinghua Shui said composedly, Elder, many thanks for your attention. Qinghua Shui is of low ability and cannot accept such a great duty. Him, you do not have good judgment. An old person of proud attitude said from beside Ming Yi. No wonder that the blue flower family has declined, you deserve it. Qinghua Shui smiled gently as though she did not hear this. Suddenly, a shadow flashed through the air. That old person felt his vision blur. Something suddenly appeared in front of him. Startled, he shouted angrily, You dare! The old man's hair spread in anger, the fingers on his right hand flickering. Numerous green lights shot out. At the same time, a glass-like layer of light protected him. Phew! When the green light hit the shadow, it immediately turned into fragments. The old person's expression changed drastically. Just as he wanted to move again, the shadow suddenly disappeared. He couldn't help but still. The next moment, the shadow suddenly came out of the air right in front of the green light shield. Before he could react, he had to watch as the shadow hit the light shield. Bam! A crisp cracking sound was like thunder in his ears. Power came at him like a mountain and he was sent flying dozens of zhang like a kite with its strings cut. Zheng Lianer's wrist turned and she withdrew her sleeve as though nothing had happened. She said serenely, "Grandmaster is in seclusion, everyone, please be quieter." Kuai-Yan's eyes widened disbelievingly. She actually darted to directly attack an elder of the Yao. Qinghua Shui stilled slightly. However, her expression remained the same and her mind was undisturbed. A deathly silence. Shen Power, another Yao elder's voice was deep and hoarse. He gazed hard at Zheng Liana. The rumors say that Miss Zheng cultivates moon Shen Power, which is hard to predict. You have broadened my view today. However, it is unexpected to us that Miss Zheng is so hostile to us. Zheng Lianer's smile bloomed like a flower. Have you come to drink tea? This Yao elder suddenly stopped breathing. Kuai-Yan seemed to wake up from his dream, his expression serious. He slowly took out his MO weapon, the blue horsefly, that's what MO had just forged. Ming Yuyi ignored the face-off and said meaningfully, "No matter if it is Xiao Yunhai or Xiao Emogu, our goal is the angel device raiment. According to what I know, many people are also scheming for your Shen Power inheritances." Zheng Lianer smiled serenely and said, "It will depend on whether they have the ability." That's true. Ming Yuyi did not argue. She suddenly reached out a hand. Several rays of light that appeared like seagrass suddenly grew from her palm and moved. Zheng Lianer's voice echoed in everyone's ears. "I understand, you have already mastered Shen Power. If Grandmaster is willing to sell Angel Device Raiment, we will guarantee Grandmaster's safety. We only need the Angel Device Raiment." Ming Yuyi glanced at her. Zheng Lianer brushed her bangs in front of her forehead and said softly, "It probably isn't enough just based on the few of you. I dare to say this because I have some confidence." Ming Yuyi did not avoid Zheng Lianer's doubtful gaze. Her tone was not spirited, but it was filled with strong confidence that made people feel that she would be able to do it. "Who can we not sell to?" Zheng Lianer smiled. "However, with Grandmaster's temper, the pseudo-Shen device will not be cheap." Pseudo-Shen weapon. These three words clearly touched the nerves of the Yao elders. Their expressions were normal, but the changes in their gazes could not escape Zheng Lianer's gaze. Pseudo-Shen device, Shen device, there has to be a price. Ming Yuyi's expression was normal. "Are you able to give a price on behalf of Grandmaster?" "No." Zheng Lianer smiled serenely. "Then let Grandmaster give a price," Ming Yuyi said directly. "Apologies, Grandmaster is in seclusion and will take 3 days. Everyone, please come back after 3 days," Zheng Lianer said. 3 days? Ming Yuyi shook her head. "We cannot wait so long. Then there is no other option." Zheng Lianer shook her head. A smile blossomed on Ming Yuyi's face. "Then let us experience Miss Zheng's moon Shen Power. Elder Su, please." The deep-voiced elder nodded and slowly came out of the ranks. He said seriously, "The Moon Tribe was a famed tribe even in the ancient era, and the moon Shen Power they used stood at the peak. It is an honor to experience it today." Zheng Lianer was about to speak when a voice suddenly sounded, "There is no need to trouble Miss Zheng, I will start." Kuai-Yan held blue horsefly. His cool face had a murderous expression. Zuomo's movements were fast and he was but a shadow as he flew around. Rays of dazzling light flowed from his hands shooting into the ground. There were great demands for setting up such a complex Jinji. There were numerous seal scripts and MO matrices. Even Zuomo had to focus all of his attention. If other people saw him now, they would be dumbstruck and gaping in shock. The ground was completely transformed and covered in seal scripts and MO matrices all over. The Yin energy in the surroundings was starting to be affected, and occasionally would form small twisters. Zuomo's expression was focused, and he didn't dare to split his attention. He knew time was precious. The king's forbidden firmament was their greatest ace against those experts. The faster he could finish preparing this ace, the better it was. King's Forbidden Firmament was 500 li in diameter in the original design, but Zhuo had compressed it to 50 li. This way, it would greatly increase its power, but the difficulty of setting it up would also increase dramatically. A fine sweat covered Zhuo's forehead, but he didn't feel tired at all. His eyes flashed with a stunning light. The great pressure made him unprecedentedly focused. He was completely immersed, filled with bravery. He was in a trance. His thoughts were livelier than ever before, and his mind was clear as it never had been. His hand movements started to change, and the jinji he set up gradually started to change. Too absorbed in his work, Zhuo did not realize this. His hand movements were almost the same speed as his thoughts, and like instinct, the jinji started to form a preliminary shape. The yin energy was affected even more. Large amounts of yin energy flooded out from the deeper parts of the grave ghost mound and filled the area where Zhuo was setting up the jinji. Zhuo perceptively noticed this, but at this time, all of his attention was on the jinji. The first reaction in his mind was how to use the stunningly dense yin energy. His hand movement instinctively changed. More and more yin energy flooded out of the grave ghost mound. They came in a flow, one wave after another, as though there was no end. The drastic increase in yin energy made Zhuo even more excited. The thick yin energy was a power that could be used, and yin energy of such concentration was usually difficult to find. An imperceptible ripple formed deep in the grave ghost mound. Zhuo did not detect it. Ague suddenly raised her head. Purple energy flashed in her eyes as she silently disappeared into the yin energy. Ague flew about 20 li before stopping. There was a deep hole in the ground near her. The thick yin energy was pouring out from that place. The yin energy at this entrance was so thick it was almost inky black. The trembling of the ground was even more evident here. The shaking would coming in bursts every 10 breaths or so. Agui's eyes suddenly flashed with purple energy as she threw herself forward. A malicious ghost came out of the hole. Its body was shrouded in black smoke and was extremely difficult to detect in the thick yin energy. Ague suddenly appeared behind it. Her hand covered in purple energy entered the body of the malicious ghost. The inky black yin energy did not affect Ague at all. The malicious ghost froze where it was. The purple energy was like a fire that spread quickly along its body. In a flash, the malicious ghost was covered in the purple fire. The purple was ferocious, and the malicious ghost wasn't even able to wail before it turned to ash. After being burned up, it left behind only an extremely pure strand of yin energy. Ague opened her mouth and inhaled. The yin energy burrowed into her body. Moments later, Ague opened her eyes, and the purple energy in her eyes was slightly brighter. Another malicious ghost came out of the yin energy. Ague repeated the process. Ague was like a ghost, her movements lightning fast. She wasn't affected by the yin energy at all. Usually, before the malicious ghosts detected anything, they would be attacked. Each malicious ghost would be burned by the undying Shen power to leave behind that thread of pure yin energy. Ague would absorb it. After consuming dozens of threads, the purple energy on Agui's hand gradually turned into purple flames. Just like before, Agui's body once again disappeared, and her hand covered in purple fire entered the yin energy. Yet the next moment, the purple fire in Agui's eyes flashed. Bam! A great power came from her hand. Agui's figure flashed, and she moved backward. Her eyes that flashed with purple fire was locked on the entrance. A burst of air swept away the yin energy at the entrance to reveal the true appearance of the incomer. Chapter 727, Ghost Soldier. A ghost soldier dressed in armor and shrouded by yin energy appeared at the cave entrance. Its empty eye sockets were filled with 2 balls of black flame. If Zhuo was here, he would be surprised to find that this ghost soldier actually gave off faint Shen power ripples. The ghost soldier suddenly opened his mouth. Like a whale inhaling, the yin energy was sucked in. The black fire in its eye sockets more than doubled in size with a snap. The yin energy around the ghost soldier turned into thin wisps of black flame on its armor. To Agui, other than the black fire, the ghost soldier didn't seem to be any different than the ghosts before it. The purple fire in Agui's eyes jumped and her body suddenly disappeared from her spot. The black fire in the ghost soldier's eyes also jumped and its body also disappeared at the same time. Bam! A black and a purple hand hit in the air. The black and purple flames shot in all directions, but the two did not seem to detect it. Their hands continued to collide. Bam, bam, bam. It was only possible to see two shadows in the air, and light that would occasionally illuminate the environment. The black and purple flames were everywhere. Once it came into contact with something, it would be burned to ash. Such enormous noise finally disturbed Zhuemo, who had been in a trance. After focusing slightly, Zhuemo immediately understood the situation. At this time, the Jinji was more than halfway finished. He did not immediately interfere and observed in the shadows for a few moments. This ghost soldier was strong, and what Zhuemo hadn't expected was that it gave off evident Shin power. This was the reason that it had been able to fight Agui for so long. The other reason was that while it looked wooden, it was experienced in combat. Zhuemo was shocked and intimidated by many of its moves and reactions. It must have been a very powerful expert before its death. After observing for a few more moments, Zhuemo understood even more. The ghost soldier was actually slightly weaker than Agui. The reason that it was evenly matched with Agui was because of its greater battle experience. However, Agui, who relied on her instincts to fight, was not controlled by her emotions. In a short amount of time, she started to copy the other's fighting style. Agui quickly gained the upper hand. Zhuemo's curiosity was piqued by the Shin power vibrations of the ghost soldier. Its Shin power was filled with thick death energy. It was different from any Shin power that Zhuemo had ever seen before. There wasn't any record of this Shin power on the gold leaf. A completely new kind of Shin power. Zhuemo's mind moved. At present, he knew the value of a completely new kind of Shin power. His fingers flickered and numerous lights entered the ground. The ghost soldier that was gradually being suppressed by Agui detected that it was losing and tried to turn and run into the cave. Suddenly, the surrounding Yin energy became chaotic. The ghost soldier was surprised. The dense Yin energy in the surroundings that he relied on for power had turned chaotic without any warning. It panicked. For Agui, whose battle tactics had improved greatly, how could she pass on such a good opening? Her body flickered, and two images of Agui suddenly appeared in front of the ghost soldier. The ghost soldier stilled. Suddenly, it felt a grip on its neck. Its vision blurred, and a hand covered in purple fire raised it up and smashed it hard against the ground. Agui had used Shin power and the power of the strike was great. The ghost soldier's entire body was deeply embedded into the ground. The black fire in its eye sockets wavered from the smash. Before it could regain clarity and struggle to stand up, two fingers covered in purple flames pointed at the two balls of black fire in its eye sockets. The ghost soldier immediately became docile. That face covered in Yin energy showed fear. Zhuemo quickly appeared next to Agui, crouched down and looked curiously at the ghost soldier. Zhuemo had killed things like ghosts and fiends before, but he hadn't studied them greatly. Even in the Xiozha world, Xiozha of this kind were rare. Because of the Yin energy, they were not welcomed by other people. This ghost soldier's power was extraordinary to have been able to fight for so long against Agui. Zhuemo was even more curious about the Shin power it had. Zhuemo's fingers flickered. Several streaks of light entered the ghost soldier. The ghost soldier's body froze and was unable to move. Agui moved her hand away and stood at the side. The ghost soldier stared at Zhuemo with unusual terror. Zhuemo's presence was its bane. The Sun Shin power was the utmost yang and masculine, the natural enemy to ghosts that were born from Yin energy. This was also why, while this place was dense in Yin energy, Zhuemo didn't fear it at all. After a momentary inspection, Zhuemo was slightly shocked. The Shin power the ghost soldier had was from before its death. Due to some reason, while it was dead, its Shin power had not completely dissipated and been kept. This portion of Shin power that had been kept continued to merge with the Yin energy to form a new kind of Shin power that had never appeared before. The ghost soldier's intelligence was not high and it fought based on instinct. Zhuomo's mind moved and he turned to look at Agu. Agui's usually expressionless face showed a rare desire. In a moment, Zhuomo understood. This kind of Shen power filled with the energy of death was very beneficial to Agui. Agui's Shen power was the undying Shen power and came from the undying Shen punishment. While it was called undying, it originated from the same source as death, although its expression was of the complete opposite. In the traditional understanding of death, death was the final destination but also the start. A beginning and ending, they were twins. The undying Shen punishment was to be forever unable to escape, an imprisonment that would trap them in an endless, hopeless, and painful death. It was a death of the undying. The endless pain, suffering, hopelessness, those were the sources of the undying Shen power and also were powers that belonged to death. Yet if one could break free of the hopeless death, then it was undying life. Life forever needed to come from death. This was the foundation of the undying Shen seal. Suddenly, Zhuomo had a great understanding. Yet his emotions were complex. This path was dangerous and multiple times harder than the system of traditional death. Life was forever harder than death. Zhuomo did not show his emotions. He moved to the side and left the ghost soldier to Agu. Ague did not hesitate. Her hands slapped down and the yin energy shrouding the ghost soldier immediately crumbled to expose the two purest balls of black fire. Ague opened her mouth and sucked in. The black fires were immediately sucked into Agui's mouth and the purple fire in Agui's eyes grew. Zhuomo immediately took Agui's hand for an inspection. What was being nurtured in Agui's body became slightly clearer. The pure Shen power that contained death energy was greatly beneficial for Agu. Zhuomo was slightly relieved. While he was curious what the cave held, time was tight, and this was not a good moment to explore under the ground. But this cave entrance that was continuously spewing out yin energy would give his Jinji great help. Ague was standing guard outside the entrance. She appeared like a hungry child. Zhuomo couldn't help but grin. He set up several Jinji near the entrance in case Ague encountered some danger. Who knew what else was inside the cavern? After setting this up, Zhuomo continued to set up his Jinji. The king's forbidden firmament, which was taking shape, started to give off an intimidating power. Kuai Yin's face was covered in wounds. His eyes were like two burning balls of flame. He gripped the blue horsefly tightly with its head pointed up. It's useless. Elder Su looked down expressionlessly. The crystal at his forehead was a pure blue and there seemed to be a faintly discernible ripple of a vast ocean, and the sound of waves coming from it. Elder Zu's Shen power was not strong but it had a presence as vast as that of an ocean. He raised his hand. The faint sound of the waves suddenly grew stronger like a storm forming above the ocean. Kuai Yin's vision blurred. He was suddenly surrounded by the angry waves of the ocean. Terrifying power came from all directions, pulling, twisting, and tearing. He had a hard time to keep his position. An ocean, it was truly an ocean. Kuai Yin was shocked. This wasn't an Yao art. Shen technique. The two words exploded in Kuai Yin's mind. A light flashed through Tseng Lianer's eyes. The other was very strong but his Shen power wasn't pure. This was related to the path the other had taken. The merging of Shen power and Yao arts had formed a completely new kind of Shen technique. As expected of a member of the Yao Council of Elders, he was able to create such an unique Shen technique. It really was powerful. Yao arts were full of transformations to start with, and after Shen power was added, its flexibility was maintained while its power was dramatically increased. However, this new kind of Shen technique was not without its weaknesses. Its impurity was its greatest weakness. Tseng Lianer had cultivated Shen power for a long time, and knew that the purest Shen techniques did not have many complex transformations. Pure Shen power could make the simplest moves extremely powerful. However, this new kind of Shen technique was easier for Yao to learn. It was possible to see that the Yao had a breakthrough in the study of Shen power. If these people all cultivated Shen power, then there was great trouble. Tseng Lianer was secretly shocked. Looking at Kuai Yin struggling in the Shen art, Her eyes flashed with light and she was about to attack. Quian suddenly shouted. The blue horsefly in his hand suddenly lit up. The serene blue light illuminated all of the ocean. Pew pew pew. Sharp bone spikes broke out of Quian's body. The bone spikes were about 5 cun long and the thickness of chopsticks. In a blink, bone spikes covered Quian's entire body. Then the bone spikes left Quian's body and floated around him. There was a point of white energy at the tip of every bone spike, so many that people's scalps prickled. Sung Lianer's eyes flashed and she suppressed the urge to attack. Spear Hedgehog Mo Physique. She hadn't thought that Quian, who had a nondescript appearance, was one of the Spear Hedgehog clan. The Spear Hedgehogs were natural experts in spears and other polearm weapons. What they were most famous for was the Spear Hedgehog Mo Physique, one of the top Mo physiques that could use spear-type Mo skills to their true potential. And the blue horsefly in his hand was one of the top spear-type Mo weapons. Sung Lianer's curiosity was immediately aroused. The blue horsefly flashed with blue light suddenly exploded into tens of thousands of blue fragments. These blue energy fragments were like an enormous school of tiny blue fish that swam in the ocean. The terrifying power of the ocean did not pose any difficulty for them. In the opposite side of the fish, the bone spikes that floated around Quian gathered towards his hand at a rapid rate. A bone spike spear that was formed from the bone spikes appeared in Quian's hand. The ferocious waves and the great pressure that came from all directions could not stop this from forming. The moment that the bone spike spear formed, the deep blue school of fish suddenly stilled. Quian widened his eyes. He ignored the water around him, following his intuition, and made a textbook and perfect spear stab with a twist of his waist. Chapter 728, Threats. The young Mo god and the old man simultaneously stopped and turned to look in the direction of the grave ghost mound. It seems that someone wants to get there ahead of us. The old man shook his head and said, Let's go. Our warm-up is finished after fighting for so long. We cannot let the Yao come to the Mo territories and reap the benefits, the young Mo god said lazily. The old man shook his head rapidly. Your Mo Shin temple is great and bright. Those old Yao have many people, only I am alone. Who are you trying to fool? You clearly are on the same side as Xiao Mo guest group. The young Mo god rolled his eyes. Are you in or out? Oh, all right, those that try to steal benefits ahead of others are the worst. The old man thought to himself for a moment and then immediately put on a murderous expression. The young Mo god clapped his hands and said righteously in agreement, Exactly. The two immediately disappeared. The frightened people of Buzhou City sighed in relief, but then some of the experts who were sensitive immediately discovered the noise far away. Grave Ghost Mound. It's the Grave Ghost Mound. The crowd shifted. Some of the more daring people immediately flew into the sky towards the Grave Ghost Mound. The bone spike spear immediately created a great suction force like a whirlpool that gathered the blue fish-like energy fragments. Ripples radiated from the tip of the spear. The ripples had sharp thorny edges. The blue energy followed the ripples and gathered at the tip of the spear. The tip of the spear became so bright that people were unable to look directly at it. Those that saw the blue energy felt their soul shake. Hiss. A tsunami of hissing, each ripple with a frequency higher than the last. The blue energies seemed to be alive as they followed towards the lit-up spear point. Elder Zu's expression changed. His gaze was focused on that bit of blue light. Earth Mo weapon. The other actually wielded an Earth Mo weapon. Suddenly, he recalled that Xiao Moger had also forged 4 Earth Mo weapons in addition to the Angel Device raiment. If this was in the past, the creation of new Earth Mo weapons would attract much attention. But for the Yao elders that had successfully reached the doorway to Shin power, they had unconsciously dismissed the value of the 4 Earth Mo weapons and set their sights on the pseudo-Shin device. Yet when they directly faced the soul-stealing bright blue energy, a strong feeling of danger rose. Elder Su suddenly woke up. An Earth Mo weapon was still enough to be a threat to him. His clothing swayed despite the lack of wind. Elder Zu's face suddenly flushed as though he was drunk. His hands pressed down, and his shout was like thunder. Set. The ocean that had been full of ferocious waves suddenly became clear. The surface of the water was motionless, crystal clear like a sapphire. Within the enormous jewel, that blue light moved unusually slow. The pressure coming from all directions increased dramatically. Quian almost suffocated. His strong mo physique was cracking under such pressure. He was experienced in battle, and had fought his way from the border of life and death innumerable times. He knew that this was the crucial moment. He unexpectedly closed his eyes, his mind completely serene. His right hand that gripped the bone spike spear now slid along the shaft to the end of the spear and then abruptly twisted. Snuff. The bone spike spear suddenly exploded. The furiously spinning bone spikes were full of destructive power. Boom, boom, boom. The explosion of bone spikes tore a gap in the ocean water. A flow of blood came from Quian's mouth. He opened his eyes, which were unusually calm and bright. That bit of blue light had flown out through the opening created by the explosion. There was a thread of amusement at the corner of his mouth. Ever since he discovered the other cultivated Shin power, he had gambled on blue horsefly. What he gambled on was that the other had not cultivated Shin power for a long time. He gambled that blue horsefly was able to hurt the other. A dot of blue light flew out of the ocean water, and Elder Zust's face turned ashen white. Pressed, he also used his full power. Countless walls of water rose from the ocean to try to block this blue energy. However, this blue energy did not seem to be tangible and was not obstructed at all. The blue light flashed and arrived in front of Elder Su. Elder Zust's gaze met the blue light, and found a great suction come from the blue energy. He was unable to move. Shocked and hopeless, he shouted, "Save me!" Before he finished speaking, the blue energy pierced Elder Zust's forehead. Countless blue lights exploded from Elder Zust's head. Elder Zust's body melted like snow. Blue horsefly resumed its original appearance. Its light was dim and the body was covered in cracks. It fell from the sky and smashed to the ground into countless pieces. Quian also fell from the sky, his face paper white, and his breathing almost undetectable. A shout suddenly sounded in the air. A thread of fire suddenly flew out from the group of the Yao elders, targeting the unconscious Quian Snap. The thread of fire suddenly exploded midair. A long sleeve wrapped around Quian Tsing Lianer's serene voice sounded in everyone's ears. "It's the first time I have seen a honored elder of the Yao this shameless. You dare! You girl!" An elder pointed at Tsing Lianer and shouted angry. Before he finished speaking, a crescent moon suddenly lit up behind his head. The crescent moon spun and his head separated from his body and dropped down with a roll. Tsing Lianer said serenely, "You are so old, yet your temper is so fiery. Why?" Tsing Lianer's attack came without any warning. Her attack intimidated all those present. Everyone felt a cold wind at their necks and were shocked inside. Tsing Lianer's moves surpassed their imagination. Ever since they stepped into Shun power, everyone's power had grown immensely and all of them had been confident. They looked down on normal Sky Yao, marshals, and Fanshu. The only people they were wary of were the three Mo gods of the Mo Shin Temple. Who would have thought that a marshal with an Earth Mo weapon would take Elder Zust's life? Tsing Lianer's moves were even more uncanny and unpredictable. Elder Wang had died where he was. None of them had confidence that they would be able to dodge this move. Ming Yu's expression was grave as her Shun power rippled. Her presence continued to rise. She was like a blinding sun in the sky, giving off light that no one could look directly at. Her eyes were frosty as she said coldly, "This is how Xiao Mo Gu treats his guests?" Tsing Lianer's expression was composed, but her heart sank slightly. That move just now had been a Shin technique she had comprehended not long ago. It was called the First Moon Strike. She saw the others' overbearing attitude and had wanted to intimidate them, so she had used this move. The First Moon Strike was powerful, but it also expended a great amount of Shin power. More than half of her Shin power was gone. What she had not expected was that while the other elders showed fear, Ming Yu did not have any fear at all. Tsing Lianer was surprised by the Shin power vibrations that Ming Yu gave off. It was much stronger than that Elder Su. If she was at full power, she was confident she would be a match, but right now, if she fought, her bluff would be exposed. Qinghua Shui had improved greatly, but hadn't cultivated Shen power. She was lacking too much compared to these elders, and could not help. Just as Seng Lianer was becoming panicked, a cool voice sounded in the sky. "This is how I treat my guests." Ming Yu's pupils suddenly contracted. Just as the word sounded, a golden flame suddenly shot out of the ground and rapidly spread between Seng Lianer and Ming Yu. A ruler-straight golden thread of fire was like a sharp knife that completely separated the two. "All those that cross the line will be killed." The cool voice was like a murderous autumn wind that blew into the hearts of the elders. Each of them felt a chill. Yet no one dared to take the words as a joke. This golden line of fire burned silently, yet the purity of the Shen power it contained shocked them. There was such pure Shen power in the world. Even Ming Yu stopped breathing for a moment. She was intimidated. Her expression changed slightly. She knew now that she had underestimated Xiao Emogu. The other's skill in Shen power far surpassed her predictions. In a moment, her expression recovered. Xiao Emogu was stronger than she had imagined, but she had the absolute advantage in terms of numbers. All of the elder around her cultivated Shen power. While each one individually was not as strong as Xiao Emogu, their collective power meant they had the upper hand. In a few moments, she considered the gains and losses. She secretly added Xiao Emogu's Shen power inheritance to their goals this time, other than the angel device raiment. If they could obtain Xiao Emogu's Shen power inheritance, she could completely perfect the Elder Council's Shen power. "Xiao Emogu, you want to become enemies with the Council of Elders?" Ming Yu didn't give up an inch and asked in a cold voice. Behind the line of fire, it was completely silent. At some unknown time, Seng Lianer and Qinghua Shui had disappeared. "Xiao Emogu, while you are of unknown origins, you must have the blood of a Yao." Ming Yu was not demotivated, her tone determined and firm. "Right now is the time of great change in the world. Don't you want to accomplish something? The Council of Elders desires those with skill, and you are one that we need. If you are willing to enter the Council of Elders, I am willing to give up my own position and be your second in command. The Council of Elders has numerous core, resources, and people. The help they can give you is unimaginable. The faction that you have now will be completely in your command, and the Council of Elders will not interfere." The other elders heard this and all changed expression. Their gazes as they looked at Ming Yu were filled with shock and admiration. Inside the grave ghost mound, Zhou Emo couldn't help but admire Ming Yu as well. This woman was strong. If this was any other person, they would be moved by hearing these conditions. The power of the Council of Elders was so enormous it could not be matched. All of the Yao were under its rule. The only one that might be comparable was Kunlun. Tian Huan and the others were lacking slightly, and as for the Mo that were divided under the rule of warlords, no one could compare. Clap, clap, clap. Clapping suddenly sounded inappropriate at this time. A handsome and upright youth slowly entered people's view. It was the young Mo god, Yoshiyaku. He glanced at the line of fire on the ground, and his heart jumped. He did not show anything on his face except a lazy smile. "I have heard long ago that Miss Ming is a great woman and a rarity among the Yao. You are just as the rumors say. So great. However, how can us Mo endure you Yao coming to our territory and allow you to dig at our foundations? Are you Mo god Yoshiyaku? It is an honor to meet you." A light flashed through Ming Yu's eyes as she elegantly gave a bow. "Ayaya, I would rather not meet such a powerful woman as you," Yoshiyaku said impolitely and immediately caused anger to appear on the faces of the elders around Ming Yu. "Hey, Xiao Emogu, how about coming to the Emotion Temple? I'll give my position to you." "Oh, right, our Emotion Temple doesn't have those rules. You can do whatever you want, come whenever you want." It is such a good place to waste away the time and wait for death. There's no other place like this. Qinghua Shui and Seng Lianer looked strangely at Zhou Emo Qian, who had just woken up, gaped with shock on his face. Chapter 729. The prologue to the feast Zhuemo was also slightly stunned but then became slightly smug. Soji was in such high demand. However, he wasn't the greenhorn Ji from the past that had just started out in the world. His smugness did not show one bit on his face, and his tone was filled with conflict and agitation as though he was making a greatly difficult choice. I need to consider this. Sung Lianer and Qinghua Shui looked at Zhuemo's strange expression. They heard this sincere voice and gaped. Actor? Definitely an actor. Kuai An's expression was puzzled. He didn't quite understand. There was nothing more that had to be said of the Council of Elders, and the Mo Shen Temple had leapt to become one of the factions in the Mo territories with the greatest potential. While it was unable to compare to the Council of Elders at present, the potential it displayed definitely would allow it to become a titan in the Mo territories. Invitations from 2 top factions, and he seemed to be joking around? Under Kuai An's stunned gaze, Zhuemo hurried to keep setting up the Jinji. If he had been anxious before, then Zhuemo was filled with confidence about the King's Forbidden Firmament. Now, the King's Forbidden Firmament had such power just in its beginning form. He greatly anticipated the completed King's Forbidden Firmament. Golden Crow Camp had created something powerful. Thinking about that group of low-ranking forging Xiuzhe who lived at the bottom and did not have any ambition to being able to create such powerful Jinji now, Zhuemo was filled with a sense of accomplishment. At this time, Mo Cloud Sea and Golden Crow Camp was extremely busy and moving at full speed. The battalions had finished assembling, and the atmosphere of Mo Cloud Sea was grave and murderous. An enormous Jia map was in front of them. Gong Suncha had a smile of a neighbor's boy on his face. In front of him, Shu Long, Ma Fan, Ajag, Sherdong, Wei Ran Yiling, and others were gathered and sitting in a row. Any of these people, if placed into another faction, would be able to be a main commander, but here, they did not dare to even slack off. Each of them had the unique murderousness of a battle general on their face. Their orderly clothing and their stern expressions had become the unique traits for Mo Cloud Sea battle generals. Bihan only managed his Sin battalion, and the entire battle general system of Mo Cloud Sea was managed by Gong Sun Cha alone. Gong Sun Cha liked a clean style, and this influenced everyone under him. Even people like Lei Peng would carefully groom themselves when they went to see Gong Sun Cha. The astounding victories had caused Gong Sun Cha and Bihan's fame to grow. They had made their way into the top ranks of battle generals in the world. The commanders present either had been promoted by Gong Sun Cha or taken hostage by him after being defeated. They in turn would not doubt his orders. It had been a long time since Mo Cloud Sea has made any big moves. Everyone's eyes burned with spirit. Other than Bihan, all of the battle generals were present. Just now, we have received information that Kunlun is participating in the fight over Xian Kong's territories. Gong Sun Cha said with a smile. Boom. The conference room shifted. Everyone had undisguised excitement on their faces. All of them understood what this meant. Darren, let us also fight. Lei Peng, who always feared the world wasn't chaotic enough, was the first to jump out. The eyes of Sherdong, who was famed for his calmness, flashed with a burning fighting spirit. He murmured to himself, a good chance. The conference room was heated and noisy. Gong Sun Cha did not stop them. He knew that these people had been anticipating this opportunity for a long time. 2 hours ago, Kunlun finally could not resist and started their attack against Xian Kong Temple. This was a strong signal, a signal that all of the 4 realms had been waiting. The feast to divide Xian Kong Temple had started. They had all been waiting for this signal. Everyone knew that Xian Kong Temple was weak now. There had been more skirmishes in the past while around Xian Kong Temple's borders than over the past 1,000 years. But Gong Sun Cha did not act. He had worked hard to plan out how to gain the most benefit out of this great feast. Looking at the excited group, his lips couldn't help but curve into a small smile. For some reason, he suddenly thought of Shixiang. How was Shixiang right now? He didn't know. If Shixiang was here right now, these problems would not even be problems. Gong Sun Cha dazed off. He always admired how Shixiang would be at ease dealing with any matter, and then show a smug expression off afterwards. He gathered his thoughts and his gaze once again focused on these strong commanders. He took a deep breath. No matter what, he had to help Shixiang construct a good foundation. A strong foundation that could help Shixiang complete what he wanted. Burning fighting spirit was like a flame that was suddenly ignited and burned crazily. It spread through his calm eyes. The commanders felt Lil Miss fighting spirit. The noisy conference room immediately quieted. All of their postures straightened and looked hungrily at Gong Sun Cha for the orders. The plan has already been given to you. I believe that you have already read it over many times, so I won't go over it again. Gong Sun Cha's voice that was sharp and held a thread of craziness echoed in the conference room and caused everyone's burning fighting spirit to become even more fanatical. This time, our target is 56 Jia. They have all been marked. Not one more, not one less. Any faction that obstructs you is an enemy. No matter what you do, defeat them, massacre them, take them hostage, I only have one demand: speed. With the fastest possible speed, conquer the 56 Jia. Gong Sun Cha almost shouted at the end. Yes, Darren. Everyone shouted in response. Golden Crow Cloud Island had never been so busy before. It was filled with people, all of the core members of Golden Crow Camp gathered together. Other than this core group, there were also many outer organizations that made their expansion so enormous. There were many outer organizations in Mo Cloud Sea. They were mostly led by 1 or 2 core members, and their composition were the normal strength Xiozha that specialized in daily skills. Some simple talisman, Ling Dan and Ling food creation was done by these outer organizations. As Mo Cloud Sea's strength increased, the amount of items they needed also increased by an enormous amount. Golden Crow Camp alone was not enough, and so these outer organizations were born. The young people with outstanding talent had to pass through these outer organizations to increase their experience and master their respective field. Because experts taught spells and techniques, and they could find work easily in a relatively fair competitive environment, the number of these outer organizations increased drastically. Looking at the noisy crowd, the 2 masters' brows were tightly locked. Worry flashed across both pair of eyes. Compared to the well-trained and organized Golden Crow Camp, these outer organizations were almost unbearable to look at with their chaotic management. Thinking about Gong Sun Cha Darren's astounding plan, the 2 masters felt the pressure increase greatly. Behind them, more than 1,000 treasure ships were floating in the air, creating a spectacular scene. These treasure ships had been gathered by collecting all of the treasure ships that the businesses in Mo Cloud Sea used for transportation. This time, they really made a great investment. Suddenly, a paper crane flew in front of Master Sun Bao. Master Sun Bao took the paper crane and read. An excited blush came onto his face. He handed the paper crane to Ji Wei. Ji Wei was also similarly excited. The Golden Crow Camp members that had been waiting below looked with wide eyes at the 2. Master Sun Bao said gravely, "The battalions have already departed." Everyone's eyes lit up, and they shifted restlessly. Master Sun Bao used all of his strength to shout, his voice passing through the seal formations to every corner of the Cloud Island. "Everyone, take your teams, and board the treasure ships according to the order. We will follow behind the battalions. All of the Jinji forts that we build have their locations designated already. Once the battalions conquer the region, we need to use the fastest possible speed to set up Jinji forts. All of you listen up. The fastest, 169 Jinji fort. Not one less. Get ready to board. We depart immediately." The crowd started to move. It was a stampede of bodies. Many people were floating outside the grave ghost mound. All of their gazes were focused that ruler-straight golden line of fire on the ground. No one dared to cross it. Those with power could smell the strong scent of danger, and those even stronger were more astounded by the purity of the Shen power in the golden line. The news that the Yao Council of Elders had broken the secret of Shen power had been spread far and wide. The battle that had occurred just before had not escaped investigation. Shen power, this ancient and unfamiliar power, was like that ruler-straight golden line of fire. It became a new dividing line. The difficulty of obtaining the secrets of Shun power could be imagined. But a martial level had an Earth MO weapon could threaten a Shun power expert. This was the information taken from the battle just now. Maybe it wasn't all Earth MO weapons, but Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai's Earth MO weapons had proven this. Blue Horsefly had been destroyed, the Yin Clearly Chakrams had been exchanged, the value of the remaining 2 Earth MO weapons suddenly increased. For those marshals, the Angel Device raiment wasn't something they could aspire to own. The only thing that could give them a feeling of safety were the last 2 MO weapons. In a flash, the last 2 Earth MO weapons were traded for. Ian looked at the 3 reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrasses on his hands and was in a dilemma. The development of events had surpassed his imagination. Xiao Yunhai was actually Xiao Emogu. This unexpected result immediately caused him to end up on a train he could not get off. He didn't have the courage to swallow the 3 reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. He wasn't so stupid to provoke such a terrifying enemy for just 3 reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrasses. But Xiao Emogu's situation was terrible and surrounded by enemies. No matter how powerful the Jinji was, Xiao Emogu could not stay inside for his entire life. Once he left, he would face a situation where he was surrounded and attacked on all sides unless he threw his lot into a powerful faction. The 3 strands of reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass immediately became a hot potato. If he gave them to Xiao Emogu, he would offend either the Emotion Temple or the Yao Council of Elders. If he didn't give them to Xiao Emogu, and if Xiao Emogu didn't die, then he could not afford the risk that the other would come back and settle his debts. Darren! Darren! His subordinate charged in with a pale face. Looking at his subordinate's expression, Ian's heart turned cold. Qian Darren used Blue Horsefly to kill a Yao elder. Qian Darren is heavily wounded, and Blue Horsefly was destroyed. The subordinate's voice was trembling. Ian felt his head ring. Great trouble. A long time later, Ian's expression recovered from ashen white. He gritted his teeth. Go! To the grave ghost mound. Since they had already offended the Yao Council of Elders greatly, and didn't have any relationship with the Emotion Temple, the only hope they had left was Xiao Emogu. Chapter 730, Silent Arrivals. Emo furiously continued to set down the Jinji, the light of spells on his hands flooding downwards. The complex Emo matrices and seal formations appeared on the ground with intimidating glows, blossoming and spread. In a trance, Zwe Emo threw everything happening on the outside to the back of his mind. His eyes were focused, and his mind was clear. All kinds of seal scripts and Emo matrices flashed across his mind, and then flew out of his fingers. The geography of the land, the river flows, the earth fire, the movement of the Yin energy, everything with 50 li was within his fingertips. Tseng Lianer woke up from her recovery meditation. While she had the sun seeds that Zwe Emo had given her, she couldn't bear to use them. Things that could be used to replenish Shin power were treasures among treasures right now. She raised her head to look at Zwe Emo in the sky with a serene expression. That figure gave off strong confidence. There was no pause or hesitation as he threw down the lights. Without realizing it, Tseng Lianer's gaze became even deeper. There seemed to be mist overlaid over her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking inside. Qinghua Shui's gaze was much simpler. Reverence and shock, but these feelings did not make her gaze heat up. It was still as serene as water. Qian's face was pale. He was the most shocked of the group. Xiao Emogu, Xiao Yunhai, these 2 identities were not secrets now. But even if he was seeing the spectacular scene in front of him with his own eyes, he could not reconcile the 2 completely different personages and identities as the same person. Suddenly he shook from a chill. It was slightly cold. This unfamiliar feeling stunned him. Moments later he reacted. He was heavily wounded, and his Emo physique was weak. He couldn't help but glance behind him out of the corner of his eyes. His eyes suddenly widened. At some unknown time, it had started to snow. Gray snowflakes fell and the world was completely gray. This was... He opened his hand and a gray snowflake landed in his hand. The bone-aching cold caused him to shudder, but then the gray snowflake quickly melted on his palm. A pure strand of Yin energy dissipated in the air. Yin energy? Qian's gaze turned shocked as he suddenly turned his head to look closely at the figure in the sky, that person that was in his own world. He was able to make Yin energy into snowflakes. Qian tried to quickly calm himself down. More puzzlement surged. It started to snow within a 50-li area. Large patches of feathery gray snowflakes slowly fell down. These snowflakes, what was their use? Just as everyone was shocked by Zhuamo's uncanny moves, no one noticed that a Gue had disappeared. A Gue appeared at the entrance to the Yin energy cave, where the ghost soldier had appeared at. Beside her was the black gold seal soldier that had come out at an unknown time. He was using his metal fists to bang on his metal chest. The black gold seal soldier had an expression of bravery. Ague, don't worry about those ghost soldiers. If one comes, I'll kill one and then eat it. Noticing Ague turning to look at him, his tone changed and he said fawningly, I mean I will kill one, and have Ague eat one. After Ague is full, I will just take some. When he finished, he hugged his stomach with a grieved expression. He looked pitifully at Ague, tears welling up. Sister Ague, Lil Black is so hungry. Ague turned around, unaffected, and completely ignored him. Seeing that trying to be adorable was ineffective, the black gold seal soldier could only turn to face the cave entrance. He immediately became murderous and hungry. The cowardly will die from hunger, the brave will die from overeating, in order to die from overeating. Pia, a bare foot stepped onto his back, throwing him off balance. The black gold seal soldier fell face first into the cave, and a string of wails came from the cavern. Ague jumped down. Experts gathered on a cloud outside the grave ghost mound. Marshal D looked at the grave ghost mound in the distance and said emotionally, this Xiao Mogu is really an influential person. No matter where he goes, he creates a storm. Qin Ming nodded and said, yes, but it is unwise to become known everywhere. A hero would not stand under a collapsing wall. The situation right now is not a dead end, but it is a closed one. It is difficult to resolve. Tang Chen grimaced hearing this. You really are all idle. Let's first think about how to obtain Shen power. The smile on the others' faces faded, and their expressions became serious. They had received news that the other two Mo gods of the Emotion Temple were rushing over at full speed and would arrive tomorrow at the earliest. The Yao Council of Elders was another mountain in front of them, and this mountain was even bigger than the Emotion Temple. They looked at the Yao elders. Each of them didn't bear to tear their gazes away from the ruler straight line of fire. Mingyu Yes public announcement had revealed their aims for Xiao Mo Guest Shen power inheritance. What is Xiao Mo Gu doing inside the grave ghost mound? Zhong Wentian asked. Qin Ming was thoughtful. Yes, what is he doing inside? Old Tang, what do you know about the grave ghost mound? Tang Chen shook his head. Not much. Qin Ming was slightly surprised. Everyone had fought together once and were familiar with each other's personalities. Tang Chen had left their group and returned to his family for familial reasons, but Qin Ming thought Tang Chen was a detail-minded and cautious person. This grave ghost mound was just a few hundred li from Buzhou City. It was so close that he was shocked that Tang Chen did not know it well. Tang Chen grimaced. It is not that I do not want to know, but this place is slightly strange. Strange? Everyone's attention was attracted. A place that a marshal called strange was most likely a bit strange. I've sent many people to explore the area, but not many have returned. I eventually made a trip personally. Tang Chen's expression was grave. The Yin energy inside is extremely dense with soul fiends and malicious ghosts. As I went deeper, the Yin energy increased in concentration and would suddenly boil. If one doesn't personally experience it, it is difficult to imagine the scene. All the Yin energy in the surroundings would boil at the same time. If you use Mo skills in the slightest, it would cause the Yin energy to explode. I almost didn't make out that time. When he spoke of this, Tang Chen had an expression of fear. Everyone looked at each other with shocked expressions. Is there someone else powerful living in hiding here? Qin Ming couldn't resist asking. Tang Chun shook his head. I don't know, but ever since that time, I never went there again. I didn't expect that Xiao Emogu would run in, and I don't know what he is doing inside. At this time, a strong wave of vibrations came from the grave ghost mound. Everyone was startled and hurriedly turned. The grave ghost mound seemed to turn alive, the mountains and rivers moving. The rumbling could be heard from a distance, and the dark red earth fire formed pillars of fire. Even stranger was that the sky above the grave ghost mound was filled with gray snowflakes. A vibration that was hard to describe flashed across everyone's minds. The main peak of Xian Kong Temple looked the same as before, but the fear and alarm on the faces of the disciples could not be disguised. The complete destruction of the Elder Core was a fatal blow to Xian Kong Temple. If the world was not in chaos, they could enact a policy of isolation for decades, and Xian Kong Temple might be able to recover. But right now, the world was in turmoil, and the balance between factions was changing. People saw the weakness of Xian Kong Temple. There were continuous skirmishes at the borders of Xian Kong Temple, and all kinds of conflicts were escalating in intensity. Those factions were like cunning wolves that were tearing off flesh from the enormous body of Xian Kong Temple. All of the Xian Kong Temple disciples realized that the sect was at the time of life and death. Kunlun has entered the fight. When the news came back, all of them had ashen expression. They all knew what this meant. The participation of Kunlun would be the straw that broke the camel's back, figuratively speaking. In reality, Kunlun was not a straw but a great mountain. As expected, on the afternoon of that day, Tianhuan, who had maintained their control, took over 4 jie of Xian Kong Temple at lightning speed. Kunlun, Tianhuan, these two former allies of Xian Kong Temple showed their bright butcher knives. All of the factions understood that the climax of the feast was about to arrive. Almost all the factions moved at the same time, their eyes red as they furiously attacked. The fighting was intense and ferocious. At the moment of life and death, many of the Xian Kong Temple battalions had the thought of dragging their enemies into death with them. There were battles to the death everywhere. Their fierce and hopeless counterattack exploded. It displayed Xian Kong Temple's thousands of years' worth of foundation and bravery, but also showed its weakness and lack of future. At the main peak right now, there were only the disciples that were in charge of chores. Any disciple with fighting ability had been sent to the front lines to stop the attacks of the enemy. People were afraid. Any disciple with any knowledge knew that the present dilemma of Xian Kong Temple would not be resolved even if there were a few more Fanshu experts. When the entire world came to divide Xian Kong Temple, it was fated for this sect that was thousands of years old to die. No one could stop the entire world, not even Kunlun. Once the situation formed, the momentum had given their fate a life of its own. The participation of Kunlun and Tianhuan extinguished the last bit of hope in the hearts of the Xian Kong Temple disciples. What was most fatal was that they hadn't thought that Kunlun and Tianhuan would be so impatient. These two fatal butcher knives came so quickly. Ming Xin's mood was terrible. He did not want to die with the sect. The best choice right now was to follow another leader. Other than Xian Kong Temple, Xian Kong Realm had 9 other great temples, and they were all good choices. However, it was not possible to go throw himself with another sect with empty hands at this time. He thought of the Sutra Pavilion and the Diana Treasure Pavilion. A daring idea was unable to be suppressed. A harsh look flashed through his eyes. He needed to be fast. There probably were many that had the same idea. If he could get 1 or 2 treasures, he would naturally have a place to live in the future. After arriving at the decision, Ming Xian did not hesitate. Taking advantage of the dark, he sneaked to the Sutra Pavilion. The Sutra Pavilion was unusually silent today. A hint of anxiousness flashed across Ming Xin's mind. But he gritted his teeth and sneaked in. Usually, the Shu would guard this place, but they had all been summoned away. There were only Jinji left, but he was familiar with them. Carefully avoiding the Jinji, he finally entered the Sutra Pavilion and was extremely excited. But when he saw what was in front of him, he was struck dumb. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.